What, like? I'm pure panicking now, because it says live and it's been live for like 20 seconds. But I only pressed live 2 seconds ago. So you might very well have heard us bitching, because that's what lads do backstage on StreamYard. Maybe one day when you're famous enough, you can join us. Fucking hell. On my laptop, as per usual, totally monged out. I decided to start streaming at 8:15, so I had enough time to get home and turn my laptop on. That's how bad it is. And I was still late to start streaming. So this is going to be great. I've had like no time to like open up anything, like to instantaneously go on to what I need to go on to when it gets brought up. Oh, no. So this will be fun and games. Freezing. Awkward silences. 1 round of 5 timed out like a John Davidson stream. Oh, you might never know. Anyway, I'm joined by Toffee, as you can see.
Have they just aired us backstage, Deej?
I don't know. No, I don't think so. I don't know. It's because I pressed live and then like it said at the top 20 seconds, but I only pressed live. Like the minute I pressed live, it came up saying that.
Fucking
So,
hell.
I don't know. I don't know. But
Chief Moody, PBC, gammon sandwich. I can see there. You're right, the chief.
Oh, like, hey, are you back on YouTube now? Or are you still on Odyssey? Because I'm never about. When
No, he's just on Odyssey now. I think his channel
Mhm.
might have even been taken down.
Oh, noogie, like, you know, I'm still going. It's remarkable, really. I actually don't know how I'm still going, in all honesty. I've been around a
Don't have
while.
me on your stream if you don't want a channel strike, mate.
Well, you know, I thought I might have caught
Coffee
you
mouth.
a happy hour, like. I'm back on YouTube, lads. Oh, so was it just a
Oh,
strike?
very good. I watched your stream on Odyssey the other night, Chief. I didn't know you were back on YouTube. I can't stand Odyssey. It's fucking useless.
Odyssey's shit because most people won't migrate over to it first and foremost. But what annoys me with Odyssey most of all is that you find it very if you go into Odyssey looking for somebody, that's fair enough. But you're not going to find new people. It's not like YouTube back in the day where like it would say up next or related videos or whatever, and it would be people that were similar in nature to what you produced or whatever. Odyssey's not like that. It's just random shit that pops up. So you're effectively just in the same sort of echo chamber as the one YouTube's created for us by censoring everybody.
Have you got an Odyssey channel? I've got an Odyssey channel, but I can't work out how to connect StreamYard up to it. Like YouTube, it'll just StreamYard, boom, connect it up. It doesn't do that with Odyssey, and I can't work it out. No, I'm like this technology, though.
I don't actually know if mine uploads instantly to Odyssey or not. My YouTube videos do. They do on Rumble as well, but I don't know if it works for streams. In all honesty, what's he saying? I've decided to go live on YouTube and then replay will be on Odyssey. Let's just be fair, probably for the best.
It's sort of getting inevitable that we're just all gonna have to migrate over to Odyssey. I think YouTube's cracking down even more lately.
Aye, I don't mind Rumble, to be fair. Rumble's a bit. See, like if you sign into Rumble or whatever, you do get recommended stuff that you might actually want to watch.
UNN are on Rumble a lot, aren't they?
Aye, that's PBC's neck of the woods, like. Yeah, PBC. Our first ever stream appearance with me the other week.
That was a nice. Do you know, it was funny that because I've had a month off, haven't I? Just disappeared, and I tuned into that, and I was sorting the dogs out, so I weren't really listening to like the first 20 minutes. And then I noticed some bird's voice kept chiming in, and I was thinking, who the fuck's that there? And then realised who it was. She's a natural, like she's good on the stream, weren't she? Now when some people are a bit like mumbling and stumbling, she was a natural.
I'm telling you. I mean, I'll definitely get her on again. I did mention to her earlier on if she wanted to come on, she could come on. But right, definitely a wee natural, like. Who else have we got? We've got Garmin Sandwich. Where did he go? Well, like, how's it going? And Ragnar. Rumble is good. No, I agree, actually. Rumble's no bad, Joe. It's, again, it's another platform that people just don't really migrate over to, really. But I
Talking
find
about Rumble, is that storm? No, it looked like it was going to be a thunderstorm by you. We've got a full-on thunderstorm on Merseyside here now. Might be able to hear the thunder in the background, in fact, every so often.
It's battered everywhere, or it has been. It was really bad. Where I'm working is out in Inverness at the moment, so I missed the thunderstorm, but apparently it was really bad in Inverness. By the time I got back, it was just really bad rain. But the same thing's happening again. The sun's back out, so it's fucking pointless. It was just kind of fingers crossed that the thunder would sort of clear the air. It's not really working that way, sadly. But what can you do there? It's climate change. It's climate change. I won't hear anything to the contrary. It's definitely climate change.
I genuinely, I know people like the sun. I can't live with it. My blood's too thick for this weather. I'd be quite happy if it was like 12 degrees all the time. I just don't like the fucking heat. Especially with the dogs, they've been a fucking nightmare today. No, because they can't go out in the heat, so they're all restless.
Yeah, my dog's struggling a bit as well, to be honest. It's not good for them, really. Especially, well, as long as you've got like water, I tend to put the hose in him quite a lot. And when it's like this, he thoroughly enjoys getting sprayed with the hose. But obviously not everybody's in the position to do that all the time. You got to feel for them. We're complaining with our pale white skin. Think how a dog feels covered in fucking fur, you know what I mean?
Yeah. Did you take him? Do you know you went out at the weekend up to Loch Ness and that? Did you take the dog with you?
No.
No.
I think that no, I didn't really want to take him on an overnight thing, just in the off chance because it would have been his first time doing something like that. I don't know how he would have reacted or whatever. You know, he's a creature of habit. He likes his beds.
No, as long as he was with you, he wouldn't have been asked. Is he still? He was smacked up, wasn't he, off his head, off the little whatever the vets gave him the other day.
Aye, no, he's fine now. Back to just being a dick. Honestly, but speaking of climate change, I just want to bring this up, right? While we're on the subject of this, share my screen. Oh, there's a laptop being a bit gay. No, she's fine. Where's my Chrome tab? There we go. So, he's not bring this up, right? So, a very high fire risk across Scotland. Now, it's no secret. There's a bit of a heat wave at the moment, right? Wow, shock horror in the summer. There's many things I could pick apart with this narrative in and of itself, but just to go through the story ever so slightly, because it's very interesting what gets mentioned here, right? So you just come down and they say that the Scottish Fire and Rescue Service has issued a Scotland-wide warning of a very high wildfire risk. It comes as firefighters remain at the site of a wildfire that's been burning for almost 2 weeks. The incident near Cannock in the Highlands has caused extensive damage to an RSPB Scotland Nature Reserve. The alert covers most of Scotland until Saturday, which was the Saturday just gone. Parts of the Highlands, Dumfries and Galway and the borders are expected to reach extreme risk, right? And then if you just come down a bit, and there's the laptop saying not responding, I fucking hate it. I hate it. Right? It's just not working. Right?
My phone is a better bit of kit than your laptop, mate. Fucking hell.
It's so shit. I can't even get the new Windows there. And I can't update my recording software or anything. But it says the Scottish Fire and Rescue Service has said I love this, right? So bear in mind, change the fire in the Highlands was climate change. Oh, it's climate change. This, climate change, that. What did the Scottish Fire and Rescue Service come out and say? Most wildfires are started by accident. Station Commander John Harvey says, we urge everyone to make sure they don't increase the chance of wildfire. Wild and grass fires can start by the careless disposal of cigarettes and barbecues or campfires left unattended. They then have the potential to burn for days, devastate vast areas of land, wildfire, and threaten the welfare of nearby communities. But it doesn't end there, folks. Oh, no, the big bad, right? And it was a pretty bad fire. Nobody's disputing that, right? But they say the wildfire near Cannock started on Sunday, the 20th of May. Forestry and Land Scotland said a campfire was believed to have been the cause, right? Now, they came out, and it's more or less being confirmed. Like every single person you speak to now, it's commonly accepted. It was as it says there, a campfire, right? But this came out after the likes of Maggie Chapman, the Scottish Green dickhead, but not limited to, all these lunatics, if you want to call them that, all these malevolent political opportunist cunts, pardon my French, not sorry at all, by the way, are coming out, let's climate change, it's climate change, this climate change, that. Oh, this is the new normal, it's climate change, right? I didn't hear any retractions. I've heard no retractions at all. And the reason I bring this up is because obviously there's a little caveat to this where people will say, oh, but it might have been a mistake, an accident. It wasn't, but the conditions were ripe and ready for a fire to start, right? This is their little caveat that they always do. But they only throw that caveat in after the fact when it transpires that the fire in question that they're homing in on to suggest that this is climate change. When that argument falls through, they will then fall back on the conditions were ripe. Right. But the point is, they were initially, and they always do this, they were initially trying to give off the impression that this fire started because it was so hot. Climate change was so hot that the sun just torched and burned the Scottish countryside. When the fucking reality was, it was an accident, not deliberate, but also just as on a secondary point before I let you jump in there. How many people recently, I've seen multiple articles, but this isn't limited to just recent events. How many people over the course of the past several years have been arrested for arson? Right? In California, the wildfires, multiple people arrested for arson. In Australia, the wildfires, multiple people arrested for arson. And obviously in Australia as well, the conditions, this is something else they never really mentioned. In Australia, for example, where they say that the conditions were ripe for man-made climate change to start fires. What about the fact they can't do controlled burning anymore in Australia?
Yeah,
okay. Yeah, and also as well, it's actually a fucking fantastic point that was brought to me in Glen Urquhart Castle, of all places, by the boatman who was letting everybody back on the boat. We were talking, me and my missus were talking to him just before we went on, and he was talking about the fact that the same thing is actually happening in Scotland now. It's not as strict in Scotland as it is in Australia, but there was controlled gorge fires and whatnot in Scotland, and the moors, etc., etc. All of that stopped. Why? For biodiversity, because they're always talking about biodiversity when it comes to climate change, etc. Right? So a lot of this has been stopped in Scotland. So the conditions that they speak of because of my mummy climate, no, those conditions exist because of your fucking policies. So it's problem, reaction, solution. They create the conditions with their restrictions, then they blame it on climate change. It's remarkable how they think they've got an answer for everything, and that's why
create the problem, provide the solution.
Exactly, yeah. They think they've got all the answers, and that is why they have to suppress the alternative view. That is my little ramble on that. I'm finished. I will let you jump in there. Like, just pisses me off.
Yeah, Gammon and Ragnar, that's a good idea at the paddling pool. Good idea. I've just noticed Scott Armish just jumped in the chat. All right, lad. This an identical situation I've noticed is going on in Canada, where they're saying that things are suddenly catching fire. So all of it, it's mostly. I've been reading a lot of Bruce Scott's stuff, and that's what it's gearing towards: climate lockdowns. That's coming. As insane as that sounds, that is coming. I'll give it till the end of this year before they start. They won't do it this summer, I don't think. They'll just let it kind of fester. And then towards the end of the year, they'll be like, look what happened in the summer. We're going to have to bring in climate lockdowns. That, especially about California and Australia, about the controlled fires. Talk about their fucking completely the lefties' counterproductiveness. Don't burn stuff. It's going to destroy wildlife. Well, you saying that has literally caused a load of wildlife to burn. We need controlled burnings because of bushfires in these types of areas. The amount of wildlife that died, I love wildlife, as yourself, as you know, and the amount of wildlife in California and Australia that died because of these fucking left-hard dickheads is ridiculous. It was shocking. I had the statistic on the one in Australia, and it was shocking, but I can't get on my thing to find it. In Australia, particularly, there was like thousands of koala bears and kangaroos died in that because they just wouldn't allow the state to do these controlled fires because you know best, obviously. Fucking climate change people. evidently not.
Yeah, exactly. They hide behind, or they shield their fucking malevolence under the
Don't be
guise of
surprised as
protecting
well, mate. If you look like, latitude and longitude, where where the fires were in Scotland, it's like on the same longitude as where they were in Canada. So I guarantee they're going to throw that into it. It's like, look at this area that's prone to this type of shit. And it's all just going to be absolute fucking rhubarb bollocks.
Because as well, on that point there about Canada, though, the thing with Bruce Scott that he shared, so what's supposed to be coming into effect now, or it has been proposed in Canada on the back of these fires, and I'll come on to the fires in Canada for a brief moment in a second. They're planning to introduce fines, right, for like most outdoor activities, which would obviously be like illegal camping and whatnot. Probably going down the route of requiring permits, but then obviously if you go down the national park route, which they're doing in Scotland, like you can't like camp, or you can't even effectively set up like a barbecue or whatever on like national park grounds, like without permits and whatnot. But if you get caught, you can get in. I don't know if you can get charged, but you get booted off anyway. But if you think about that, the more national parks, or the more that they expand the national parks across Scotland in the Scottish context, the less and less places people can go freely. Like, yeah, you can walk about, but you can't actually do anything, and they can effectively impose these restrictions in these places. But
they're strict on camping as well, just general camping, aren't they?
Yeah.
Let alone setting a barbecue up.
But so that's what's been proposed as fines in Canada now. But on the point of the fires, like I actually posted this on my Telegram, and it's one of those things where
sorry, Deej, look what Mark Ritchie's just said there. That's interesting.
What?
He kind of said the quiet part out loud there.
Yeah, actually, that's funny you mention that, because I'm going to say something. What you say there, right? So this is my post on Telegram from last week pertaining to these fires. So my post is as follows. So I'm listening to the radio at work, and the news has just come in which they've mentioned the Canadian fires. Of course, it's been put down to climate change. This was on Newsbeat, right? I tried to find the Newsbeat like thing so I could like post it, like, or whatever, but I couldn't. They got some expert, this woman, to come out, and her exact quote was, "We need images like this to show that the climate is indeed warming." Now, just think about that. You could, a hypothesis here, right? I'm just putting it out there. Okay? You could, by that logic, then, climate whack jobs are determined to convince the public that there is indeed a climate crisis, right? Which would then in turn justify all their policies. They could go out and start a rake of fires, provided they don't get caught. And just to quote her quote again, "We need images like this to show that the climate is indeed warming." So if they don't get caught, they can then say, "Oh, the climate's warming. Look at these images of fires," right? Just because there's a fire, it doesn't prove fuck all, right? It doesn't prove anything at all. But what is required, like they home in on these things, whether a fire started deliberately or whether a fire happens accidentally. Like that is somewhat irrelevant. The fact is they home in on it, and it's always climate change. They did the same thing with especially the Australian fires. Despite everything we've just mentioned up until this point, they still use B-roll footage of those fires whenever they talk about the climate crisis, like in their little UN packages, a little compilation of all the spooky things that have happened, all the quote-unquote anomalies that have happened because of man-made climate change. They always use these images with the fucking fires. While the narrator is talking about, and the planet is heating up, etc., and then they show you fires that were started by people who were arrested for arson, and on top of that, fires that were started because the conditions allowed those fires to spread because of.
I bet you whoever that spokesman was who said that, like the sort of higher up paymasters were like, "You fucking dick! What did you say that for? You fucking worded that wrong."
Yeah, isn't it
You've
funny
exposed us there.
Isn't it funny though that how his comment is very similar to the one I heard on the radio, and it's probably two different spokespeople. In fact, no, he said a spokesman. The person that I was referring to was a woman. So that's two separate quotes that are eerily similar in nature. They're very close to the bone. And then to Scott's Armour's point as well, he said there that Climate refugees, 1 billion coming into Europe. Aye, they've been talking about that for some time. Climate refugees, and that's the conservative estimation. There'll be about 1 billion coming to Europe because everywhere else will be uninhabitable, apparently.
Do you know what? Interestingly, that's made me think. Scott, do you, DJ? What is obviously the population of Earth currently is about 7.5 to 8 billion.
Yeah.
What is the population of Europe? Does anyone know? I can't imagine it to be 1 billion. Considering the size of Africa and like India.
I think it's under 1 billion.
Yeah, it's got to be, hasn't it?
I'll find out there now quickly.
Considering the size of fucking China, the continent of Africa, even India and Pakistan, which in comparison to Africa, PBC said it's not 1 billion. It's definitely not, is it? Definitely not.
As of June the 12th, 2023, based on the United Nations estimations, it's 748 million.
Jesus.
But how many of them are not?
Yeah, exactly. Yeah,
you know what I mean.
We're something like 7% of the world population. Our people.
Yeah, the population of Europe is 9.78% of world population, according to that same thing that I was reading there. But again, how many of that 9.78% aren't actually European people? They're just people that live in Europe.
Yeah.
So there's always that aspect of it. But yeah, so that's my 2 cents, or our 2 cents, even on the sort of climate nonsense. It's just pisses me off how they just continuously home in on these things. But the Canadian wildfires especially, I find quite peculiar in the sense that, like, even if we take the argument at face value that the conditions were right for fires to start because climate change, etc., but like fires start everywhere at the same time. Like, you could understand maybe a fire, or maybe just for argument's sake, 1 or 2 fires in like different places or whatever, if the conditions were right, but everywhere. Like, have you seen like the imagery of where they're saying all these fires are? There's like red dots all over Canada. It's a bit weird. Yeah. I find that questionable in and of itself.
As you said, you just think, then show us the footage, show us these blazing fires. Have helicopter footage, send your news team over and show us, instead they're just little red dots on a map.
Yeah. But even if there genuinely is fires everywhere, I would still say that that's questionable. Are too many starting at the same time for that to be normal? And what I'm trying to get at here, like people with like blue hair and like nose rings, like going into the woods with their lighter and doing things that they shouldn't be doing. That's what I'm trying to get at here. Because remember, we need images like this to prove our point. You get me? Nudge, nudge, wink, wink. I don't know. But I'm just a crazy conspiracy theorist, of course. But yeah, we are a minority. It's but there's no perks for us. It's funny how that works. What's this? If Thin Lips is thrown in jail, celebrates. Don't you ever give up as the voice for us, native Scots who are becoming the ethnic minority in Scotland. Keep it going. Sadly, as far as Scotland's concerned, it's not limited to Scotland. It's something that we've spoken about on streams before, something quite a few people have spoken. Scotland's birth rate is seriously worrying. And it's not just, it's record lows now in England and Wales as well. But before that, I think that came out like 2 or 3 years ago. It's like record low in England and Wales now. But for about 5 or 6 years, it's been record low in Scotland. But yet, while that's happening, simultaneously, Scotland's population annually reaches a new high. And it breaks a record each time. So that's
a mighty high compliment. I've said it many a times, and I don't want to blow smoke up your ass. You're the only person really on YouTube that I've encountered anyway. I'm sure I would have encountered other people through the algorithm. You're the only person talking about this, and it does fucking distress me that you got. In an ideal world, anyone who's a patriotic Scot, we should be like over like the 100,000 subscriber mark. And I'm genuinely not blowing smoke up your ass, but you're the only person who's talking about this on YouTube, really. Not just YouTube altogether.
I think I am as well. Well, there's like obviously like there's Clive and Scott's Armour and Chief Moody and whatnot. But I
No,
think
but they don't quite go into the detail that you go into.
And I think though that the only thing that I would say are Clive would call me as an autistic, but like I think what sets me apart from the rest of them is like I'm a open and proud Scottish nationalist. Like they're not necessarily that, whereas I am.
Yeah,
And
I think you're right there.
I feel like like all the people that have got like big followings and that like oppose the SNP and like quote independence and whatnot.
Yeah, yeah.
A lot of them are unionists. Like I'm not a union, and that's nothing against like any English folk watching that. I don't get into the argument with like unionism and whatnot because I just think it's all stupid. It's never, not in this life. It's not happening. But like I don't hear of any people really pushing back on the idea that the independence that's being proposed and dividing the country isn't independence. I don't hear that. I just hear unionists shitting on the SNP, and it's remarkable that I have more in common with them than I do with alleged Scottish nationalists. I'd love for people with big followings to adopt my talking points, but they fucking don't.
You're right there. You're right there because you're an open Scottish nationalist. I think you're right. I think it's the same sort of thing with John Davison as well.
Yeah.
The same thing down here on a huge scale. Not that like Clive and the bigger Scottish channels are Sibnats, but say you've got the likes of, and no offense, actually, yeah, a bit of offense to them, Simon Sideways, and you know how much I fucking hate ex-army pals. We won't go into that. They just sit on the fence, so they just won't quite go. They won't quite jump the fence. So you got your lovely little 100,000 subscribers and that, and you think it's because you just won't. You're not quite willing to speak the truth. It does frustrate me.
Yeah, and on top of that as well, to that point, what I also find irritating, even and you see this like on the Lotus Eaters and stuff, is people who
Sargon, another one.
Yeah,
Perfect.
like they will call they see a spade's a spade, they'll call a spade and whatnot, and they openly this is anti-white racism, this is white racism, etc. But yet they don't seem to then sort of conclude that if this continues, things will get worse, and then they don't seem to fall into the what I would assume would be the inevitable conclusion that you have
no
to
solution.
you have to become like an advocate for your people. Like Simon Sideways, he posted that video a wee while ago, and he's like he's a white advocate now. I was like fair play, like absolutely fair play. I don't know if you've seen that, but I was like fucking fair play to you, like fair play to you, lad. But
he said fuck all about it since. And by the way, he blocked me for posting, literally just putting the number 14 in his comment section. He blocked me for that. So fuck him.
But I just that perplexes me in general, how you can sit there and be like, oh, this is anti-white bile and whatnot, but yeah, that's it.
That's it. There's no solution. Yeah, they're just I'll say it, but I won't provide any kind of solution.
Yeah, I find that perplexing, and yeah, there is obviously, as Scott Webb puts there, a lot of them are.
It's very interesting, mate. I like disagreements with. We're good mates. I don't the union thing. I don't know what I think about that, but from your point of view, if I was a full-blooded Scotsman, I'm half, I would believe what you believe. But from my point of view, it's a complicated one with me. I wouldn't know what.
See, it's for me though. Like I don't even want to talk about like the argument of unionism versus quote unquote independence. Like to me, there's so many issues going on that people in England share with us. Like if there was an independence referendum tomorrow, and we know what independence is, it's leaving the UK to join the EU, which is not independence, but don't let that stop you in your crusade. The same shit's gonna happen. Like you need to get past this nonsense, And while they're all arguing over unionism and EU bootlicking and whatnot, they don't seem to understand that the very people who they support and put their backing into are eroding their own national identity. And that's, as my profile picture in the stream would suggest, look behind long neck thin lips. Look at that flag. That's who they're all. That's their god. That is their god.
Is that stream? I think you might have privated it. I think we mentioned it a few months ago. Did you private that stream with you and John Davison, the Scottish nationalism one?
No, it's still there, I think.
Is it? If anyone hasn't seen that in the chat, I recommend you watch that.
Aye.
I agreed with everything that was said in that one.
It's just John Davison fascinates me just because not only is he born same year as my granddad, but he's like an old school Scottish nationalist. His views are somewhat changed to a certain extent, as most people's do. But like what I respect about him the most is the fact that he's like me in the sense that in an ideal world he'd want an independent Scotland, but he understands we don't live in an ideal world. That's not too
I
much
just
to
noted,
ask.
sorry, mate, the useful channel. I'm not. I'll subscribe to you, mate. I wasn't aware of you.
That's Scott Webb. If you
Was it? Oh, fucking hell, yeah, I am. Sorry, yeah.
But
Get confused
yeah,
with name changes.
I wanted to show a bit of this article here purely on the basis of climate anxiety. Right? I was trying to find the Newsbeat thing about the women on the radio, and I came across this instead. I'd like, just how disgusting is this shit? So climate anxiety is rising. It might be a good thing. Okay. So let's just tie this into the fires, for example. So all the fires everywhere, like even though like the one in the Highlands was a campfire gone wrong. Even one in Daviot, there was one in the Culloden Woods / like in Daviot and whatnot, right, which is up near Inverness, and it was again a campsite fire, right? But if you don't know that part and all you hear about is a fire, that's going to be it's climate change, and this generates anxiety, especially in young kids, right? But it might be a good thing. And then
look at the insidious use of woad on her face as well. That's not a fucking accident.
Yeah. Act now. We must act now. Stop eating meat. Stop driving your car. Stop boiling your kettle. Stop driving, right? While China does its own thing and volcanoes erupt around the world, blowing all the shit we're doing under,
But that, mate, you just said about anxiety, as if ever causing anxiety could be a good thing, which is just a ridiculous concept.
And
look like your missus, you just said there.
What she said.
A fucking special needs school, for fuck's sake. Can you imagine a load of like high up on the spectrum autistic kids terrorizing them over shit like this? Because I'll be honest, right, a lot of this is people who are high up on the spectrum who are fucking stressing out over this.
Yeah.
And becoming like hardcore activists for this kind of thing. If you look at these fucking protests, how fucking mental they are.
Mm-hmm. And it's when the kid part that I just think's disgusting. Like all the climate change protests, they're all kids demanding action, demanding change. And in fact, this article here is my screen still sharing, right? Yeah. Look at this paragraph here. It is no surprise that climate anxiety is rising, particularly among young people. So this is kids and teenagers, right?
Because you're fucking causing it, obviously.
Aye, but so they're learning about this shit in school. This is part of the curriculum now. And then what they will also do is they will point to every single thing that happens in the world. Like they home in on things now that have always occurred. Now, I'm too young to remember the summers of the 70s and whatnot, right? But the summers of the 70s, anybody that was alive back then will tell you the summers of the 70s were pretty damn hot, right? And even this section here in this paragraph where it says record-breaking heat waves, okay? So we broke the record last year in 2022, despite the fact they took temperatures near airports, but we won't talk about that. No, right? However, though, it broke a record, but the point is there was a record to break. So before that record was broken in all those years, what happened all the way back in the day when that record was set? What caused it back then? Right?
Whenever I hear the phrase "when records began," I tune out straight away.
It's just so. It says here, but experts and activists have told BBC News that these fears can actually be good news for the planet. So it's good news for the planet that climate anxiety is particularly among young people who have mostly only known a world affected by climate change is on the rise. This is a good thing, according to experts, right? People who are really aware of climate change may be more motivated to take action. How convenient is that? How convenient is that? So we'll teach the kids that climate change is real, so they grow up thinking that things need to change. They'll be more motivated to take action because they can change things for the better, apparently.
BBC and the usual channel have just said, and obviously it's only anecdotal, but I do remember. I'm 1988. I was born, I remember summers being hot as fuck in the 90s. I can't speak for the 70s, obviously, but
Aye.
nothing's
Oh, man.
changed.
Aye. Oh, Scott Stormer's there. Sorry, bud, I didn't even notice you. How
Hi,
are we doing?
mate.
Hello, boys.
Oh my god, he's back on my fucking channel, lads. Scott Stormer's back.
How's it
How are
going?
you doing, bud?
Aye, mate,
Hello.
I'm good. I'm just it's been a hard day, mate. You know, just out there at the grind, fighting against this climate change. It's an uphill battle.
Aye. As long as you're not out there denying science, then we're going to have a candid and I forgot the other word Sturgeon used to say. What was it? Candid and
Very frank.
there we go. Frank and
Very
candid
frank.
discussion about the science. You know.
I'm looking forward to this thing you've got. You were hitting at it the other day, Scott, or yesterday, in fact. You seem to have something planned. Don't give it away. Like, I'm looking forward to the surprise. You got
No,
something in the pipeline.
I've only showed 2 people it so far, and it's still a lot of work to go. But it looks like it could be a very, very useful tool, to say the least.
Aye, from what I've seen, I didn't even know you could do half that stuff on Telegram. So, fair play. I take it that was what Lumi was helping you with, was it?
Aye, because the thing is when I had gone through the process of thinking about how the best layout would this for to be, I didn't think it would have been practical like yourself. I didn't think you could have done it. So that's why I put the message into Scrubs, because I thought if nobody in your chat knows, somebody in that chat's definitely got to know, and voila, we've got it. So it's currently brown, so to speak. But I look forward. There'll be a couple of weeks yet before I can kind of lay it out to everybody. It's nothing big. It's nothing that's going to be tremendous. But I just think it's going to be a very useful tool. That's all.
No,
It was funny, DG, you won't know. When he, as Scott just said, he put it in your Resisting the Liesman chat to begin with. And I'd left the Scrubs lifeboat chat ages ago because fucking I've disappeared off Telegram, didn't I? So I asked Rags to add me back to it because I thought Lumi will know this. And then as soon as I entered, Scott's Armour was there saying, "Can anyone help with this?" And Lumi had already answered him. It was literally like on point. Great minds, lad.
Yeah,
he is though. He is. He's always sharp. But I'll stress
Lumi knows.
See, for the folks that used to do Bonnie Lads quizzes, I was sick and tired of Illuminatis constantly winning. It was either him or somebody like called Phyllis or something like that. It was always like 3 seconds ahead with their answer. And I thought, fuck that shit, man. You're never going to beat these people. Just sit there and watch. But typical Lummy, on point as always. Ask Scott about do's. Right, fill us in.
What does I do?
What do you mean?
Please,
What, a bug?
Is that, right, okay. Maybe she wasn't bullshitting me. Is it a bird?
No, legit, it's buds, aye.
So
See,
what you call pigeons doos down there?
Aye, but you get doos as well, like you would keep in a ducat.
I know what a ducat.
Aye, a ducat, like it's something that you would build yourself, and you kind of just keep birds in there.
Oh, DJ, I know. I'm more Scottish than you, lad. I know what he's talking about more than you because we Mars a Ouija.
I thought my message. I was looking at her like you're taking the piss out of me, and she's, no, I'm not asking Scott Salmon. I've no chance about it. And I was like, no, I will not be asking what a fucking do is. Like,
no, you see, I thought that was going to be the case, right? But I didn't want to just jump out there in case it was like then fair doos or something that was like quite stupid. But no, doos is a doos. Aye, birds, mate. Doos and a ducats.
Yeah, that's what my ma calls them. Doos.
Do you know what I call them, boys? Birds, because that's what they are. All right, you fucking Ouijas. I swear to God, you make up your own language. No, can I just on your?
All right, Woodland lad. Everyone, remember the 14th of this week. Woodland is setting up his website's going live. Just a little plug for him.
All right, nice. I'll fire that on Telegram when it comes out. Like, give it a wee share of. Right, I wanted to go a wee bit through this article though. Like, not much further, but look at this part here. Like, Maybe Clive's right when he calls me autistic, because I just read paragraphs like this and really want to spurg out. It really angers me how for two reasons: because it's insidious in nature, but secondly because so many people scroll through this and don't see what's wrong with it. When people talk about their own climate anxiety, they often say it's linked to the vast amounts of negative and often scary news about the planet. I think it's hard not to worry about climate change. We're constantly bombarded with news articles and social media about how it's just crisis after crisis. Ice caps melting, disasters. It can be overwhelming, explains Rasheen, a 16-year-old from Northern Ireland. Rasheen is on the youth advisory board of Save the Children, which recently found 70% of children in the UK worry about the world they are inheriting. That... And then you get like the political opportunists, the politicians and the media and whatnot that say that the children want to take action. The children are the loudest voice. It's their future, etc., etc. They're exploiting children that they've politicized and propagandized, as far as I'm concerned. You fill a child's head with science that can't be disputed because you've suppressed the other side of the argument. Then you pick to certain events that occur in the world and pretend that they've occurred, or claim that they've occurred without any verifiable proof, solely down to climate change. Climate change caused that. You're going to generate the climate anxiety that that this article speaks about, and you're exploiting children in the process in order to generate a conveyor belt of politicized children in order for your policies to be eased in at a later date. That's the way that I see this. But yet other twats read this article and go, I feel sorry for Teddy, the 5-year-old, because he's scared about the planet. Why are you scared about the fucking planet? That's the point.
It sounds, I know it sounds a bit sinister, but rather than children are being weaponized, I know it's a horrible word to use for children, but that's what's happening. They're being weaponized.
Exactly. Like, climate education could be debilitating without a form of encouragement to act, especially when we see what's going on in the world and how it's going to get worse, she explains. I mean, it's...
Kids believe in Father Christmas, mate. Like, fucking hell, I'm not gonna... But once you buy your own clothes and pay your own rent and shit, then I'll listen to you. But fucking shut up, kids. The amount of fucking dictation from kids nowadays is fucking unbelievable. That Greta Thunberg, prime example. I don't fucking care what you think. Go and play with your Barbie dolls and fuck off.
Yeah, exactly.
You're on the money, mate. You really are, because like back in the day, people would be worried about, is Santa coming or no? Or if you're a wee bit better, if your man dad were a wee bit more able, you'd be worried about, am I going to go to Butlins in the summer holidays, or am I going to go back to school with a new second name type of thing? The whole fear porn is literally weaponizing the most impressionable minds to believe in a narrative, to ultimately push the agenda through from the government themselves. And this is kind of where it ties into the whole cultural Marxist point of view, where these type of topics, because people will be smart enough to read between the lines, will disintegrate and dismantle families, because the most impressionable will be the most affected by this.
Yeah, exactly.
You know yourselves, children, we've all been children. We're like sponges when you're a kid. Like, for a good kind of example, it's very easy to learn a foreign language when you're a kid. Say I try to learn French now, or I tried to learn it when I was 9 years old. It'd go in a lot better when I was 9. They're like sponges, so they're getting them early and they're just filling their minds with fucking poison, and they know exactly what they're doing. As PBC, much respect to her. She won't mind me saying, because she said that in the chat. PBC has taken her kids out of mainstream education, and I advise every parent to follow suit. I really do.
No, absolutely. I agree. I mean, obviously, it's not feasible for everybody, but it's at the very bare minimum. If you can't really, you're not in a position to do that, then you just have to keep an absolute eye on what's being taught at schools. Like those your two options, as far as I'm
just
concerned.
Counteract what's being taught in school. Talk to your kids at home and fucking tell them what's what.
It's because it's a multi-pronged attack on kids, because not only are they being taught about all this shit in school, then like society in and of itself, like all the institutions are pushing the same narrative. Politicians are pushing the same narrative. Mainstream media is pushing the same narrative. So when you're learning in school that Monday climate change is going to end your fucking future, right? Then you got politicians saying the same thing, and you got the media saying the same thing, a child at a very young age is not only going to be, as Woodlander says, scared the shite out of, but they're looking around, and every institution, the aforementioned, is reaffirming what they're being taught. They're not seeing a secondary side to the argument or an alternative view. They're just being groomed. And that's why I've made a multitude of videos in the past specifically stating that it's political grooming. Because these aren't issues that everybody agrees on, irrespective of what side of the aisle you fall on politically. These are political concepts. Which,
the thing is as well, mate, ultimately, you look at these teachers and academia and the government and all the rest of it, we're brought up with a culture of adopting this mindset. These people are the authorities. We listen to them because they give us the best advice, and then we take that up and follow. So when they go into school and it's already a failing system, and they're obviously getting all this guilt trip about their ethnic identity, then they're getting all this climate fear porn propaganda. Then just, take up the whole fucking layer of the onion. You've got little Declans becoming Deborahs. Kids right now don't have an absolute chance in school.
No, they absolutely don't.
I took the dog for a walk yesterday up Sefton Park, and I've noticed this quite a lot. This was just not a thing when I was a kid. You'll get like a group, you get the group of teenagers sitting about as they do, and they've got like this little hyper camp lad, or even to the point of a lad dressed as a girl, and they always seem to be the part of the group, and girls gravitate around them almost, these little weird puffy kids. This did not exist when I was a kid. It's a bizarre phenomenon. I see them a lot of fucking camp weird kids, male kids, I mean.
Yeah, like the odd gay guy or whatever in school, but now it's
like,
it's
sort of going off, sort of ties into it. Just remember, like, this is say in American prisons, I know this is a bit vague, but say in American prisons, like talking about brainwashing people, in American prisons, you get the lifers who are perfectly heterosexual, and then after 20 years, they start bumming fellas. So there is a thing where you can put this into people's minds that I don't think that it's necessarily like, oh, you're gay or you're not gay. I do think that you can drill this shit into people's minds, is my personal opinion.
I'll say this. If Peter Murrell's listening tonight, he'll be delighted with it.
Sorry, Scott.
No, it's all good, mate. Again, just to say that what you've pointed out there about the prisons, if Peter Murrell's listening tonight, he's going to be delighted with the outcome.
We'll get on to that soon, by the way. But speaking, it was like kind of a segue into the LGBT stuff, actually. So I wanted to touch upon this very briefly, but let me put that back up. There, I saw a gay pride flag outside a nursery a year ago. I can believe that, because see, if you, especially on Twitter is an absolute cesspit of like, I don't necessarily know about like England and whatnot, but in Scotland, a lot of like primary teachers or primary schools, there's a lot of primary schools that have Twitter accounts. But if you go onto these Twitter accounts, you will see that a lot of the teachers are retweeting and stuff. And we're talking like primary ones, primary twos, etc. And it's like all LGBT stuff. If it's not building racial literacy bullshit, it's LGBT stuff. And the primary
hospitals.
Yeah, they're in
hospitals.
Are the
fucking worst for it.
Children's hospitals on the wards, they've got them. I mean, I just can't understand, right, why parents. I'm not necessarily knocking the people with the best intentions to go into an environment or an industry to look after people. That's very well commendable, noble. But I can't for the life of me understand why people who maybe no see things the same as us, or maybe not even look at anything in the whole political sense, would look at that flag and even question why it's an environment round about kids. It's a flag about a sexual orientation, identity at the end of the day. It's a healthcare setting. There should be nothing remotely about that at all. If you're going to have anything in a hospital, maybe have like a tiny wee saltire because it's in Scotland at the end of the day. But out with that, there should be fuck all there.
The Liverpool Royal, lads, is decked out in rainbow flags, and I can't emphasise enough, like bunting, it's all over the fucking hospital, completely decked out in rainbow flags. Because when you're having a fucking hip replacement, the first thing you think of is sucking cocks, isn't it? It's absolutely fucking ludicrous. Decked out.
Yes. Like, even driving about, like on my way to work or even at the weekends, the amount of like hotels and stuff that've got like a Scotland flag and an EU flag go figure, and then there's an LGBT flag. Like, oh yeah, well, so is it like, what's that done for? Is that done for like gays when they're trying to pick a hotel? Oh well, this one's gay friendly. John, you want to go there? They got a flag outside, darling. That's like what? It's just bizarre. They're so easily satisfied. No, we can't go there. They don't have a flag outside. Oh my god! Like, oh.
And always remember, children aren't gay or straight. They're children.
Yeah, but this one here, I don't really want to focus so much on Douglas Ross because he's just a fucking wet wipe, right? But so I just want to really more home in on the accusation that was thrown his way, right? So this was like in the last like week or so. Douglas Ross, who's obviously the leader of the Scottish Tories, he was accused of homophobia after he had the temerity to criticize a council-run drag queen story hour for children, right? So it says here that the Scottish Tory leader described the event to be held at an Elgin library on Saturday as totally inappropriate and has faced a backlash in social media over his opposition. He's been criticized for equating a drag queen reading stories for children as focusing on gender or sexual identity. But just before we even go any further, I love this bit here where it says, according to the organizers of the event by Miss Lossymouth, also known as John Campbell, a teacher. He's a fucking teacher, aims to encourage children to enjoy reading through imaginative stories while also promoting inclusion, diversity, and acceptance. Now, they are not just meaningless buzzwords. Oh, no. They tie in explicitly to the concept of gender identity in particular, but not limited to, is also sexual identity. So he's been criticized for equating a drag queen reading stories for children as focusing on gender and sexuality, as if that's a bad thing. He's correct to do so because the organizers themselves have already sort of conceded that that's what they're doing, right? And then the accusation of homophobia comes from well, he said, I could read out what he said, but it doesn't matter. There's this tweet there. It's totally inappropriate to hold a show like this for kids under the age of 6. Storytime for babies and young kids shouldn't focus on gender or sexual identity. This is common sense. And on behalf of constituents who've contacted me, I've raised this with the council, right? But Scottish Greens equality spokesperson Maggie Chapman said Douglas Ross is showing his true colours, right? He's cast himself as a pantomime villain with his preposterous and narrow-minded attacks on a simple and innocent community event. What, a fucking teacher dressed as a woman reading books to children about diversity, equality, and inclusion. Oh, a real pantomime villain is wet white Mr. Ross. Why would anyone want to stop children from learning about the joys of reading and books or about the diversity of our families and communities? Perhaps we should expect no better from a party that has defined itself against almost every step towards a more progressive and inclusive society, adding that he's scraping the barrel for more cynical culture war nonsense. It's like... Oh, I don't know. And then a Mori council spokesperson said that we appreciate and accept that everyone has different views on drag queens, but believe our fun, lively, and joyous event, joyous celebration of reading and self-expression is a suitable way to encourage confidence in our young readers. But I missed this paragraph out from Maggie Chapman, my baby. It seems that the only book Douglas Ross is interested in is the far-right playbook. It's like, what the fuck? I mean, you can laugh at their idiocy. But this is ridiculous. You're far right if you oppose a dickhead in a dress reading to children about diversity, inclusion, and whatnot, right? Because my argument is this: they try to play it down as, well, it's just reading to children. You know, well, if that's the case, why can't they invite my granny in to read a book to children? Why does it have to be Derek in a dress? Why does it have to be Derek
in a dress?
Just stand on it.
Go and do drag queen story hour at a migrant centre and see how fucking far you go.
Yeah.
But it's not even that, Toffee. I mean, we've seen this for a number of years now. If there's any sort of a rational opposition to any of the mainstream narratives that are being pushed down, it is automatically deemed as right wing. A man wants to, put his mammy's knickers on and identify as Tina, and a woman says, "No, you're not. I'm a real woman." That's right wing. Parents don't want their kids to be subjected to, a mentally ill person with all the fill for the day. That's right wing. People want to push and say, "Look, do you know something? You're going to have to accept all this demographic change." And you say, "No, we want to stand up for our own sovereignty." That's right wing. It's like that term, the coin racist. It doesn't hold any weight anymore because nobody takes it serious because it's an overused terminology to shut down somebody and kind of create a state of fear within the opposition mindset.
Do you think
This
that's true though,
hogwash,
mate? Do you think that it doesn't hold weight anymore? Because I think it does.
It doesn't. It doesn't, mate. It doesn't.
I'm
because
hoping it
anything.
doesn't.
This is the thing, right? With that word, and it's even the whole narrative of being a right wing. It's open to interpretation. Say, for example, you've got this group. It's Gays Against Groomers, I believe they're called. They don't want that shit for children, and now they're being quote unquote branded as some form of alt-right opposition. You can't take these terminologies seriously when they're actually open to absolutely anything. It's got to be a singularity. It's got to be a singular thing, and that's it. It can't grow arms and legs. But this is what the left have done for the longest time. They come up with these buzzwords in these defined terms to shut down opposition, but the minute rationality approaches within that, they've got to expand on it like the insidious filth pit that it fucking is. It's no weight, no merit, and just brush it under the carpet.
It's almost in my kind of way. I hope they keep pushing it because they're just bringing normies onto our side, kind of thing. It's like, go ahead, keep calling everyone far right over minor shit. Go ahead.
Yeah, especially when you hear shit like this, right? This is another dickhead from the Greens on this particular story in question, right? It's only a 22-second clip, right? Listen to this.
Immediately label anything associated with the LGBT community as being inherently sexual and inherently inappropriate is really revealing what they think about other people. There's a certain society that can't do anything to the LGBT people immediately thinking of their genitals, and that's just a bit weird, and we should be concerned about those people.
That, mate, if I can go first, as I just said to you on Telegram, that is the most blatant example of projection I've ever seen. Fancy calling us obsessed with fucking genitals when that's all you're obsessed for. You can almost see the fucking penis in that man's mouth as he's talking. Bollocks. Look at the state of him. Why have they always got that thin neck? Have you noticed how thin the necks always are?
Why do you even think I always fucking thin their necks for my photos? Like pencil necks, like. But this is the sort of absurd, like, counter arguments they always produce, and it's things. That's one of the proclaimers.
Mate,
the proclaimers.
Oh, where did it go? Is he one of the proclaimers?
see, on a serious note, again, this just further highlights that when there's rationality put on the table, this is an emotional drivel that they throw out there. But let's look at this objectively. A lot of people have looked at this guy, and it's always they look the same. They do look the same. But in this boy's instance, he looks like a character straight out of King of the Hill that's battling puberty. I would not take any criticism, any notion of what he says, again, and brush it right under the table.
Amen.
King of the Hill. What a cartoon.
But it isn't just the likes of Ross Greer. It is actually, well, it's all these dickheads. But this is another article that I wanted to bring up here on this very subject. In fact,
don't be surprised that young lad with the skinny neck. Don't be surprised if he's fucking appears in the news in future when his laptops have been searched.
I fucking looking at bestiality or something. Like, I think he's into a bit of that.
What kind of bestiality for research purposes?
For
Honestly, boys,
sustainability.
I wouldn't pay attention. See, behind closed doors, he probably identifies as a vampire or something. Fucking just tell him to shut the fuck up.
The vampire who drinks AIDS blood.
Non-binary vampire, of course.
Of course. Okay, Chesney Brown. But so this on the same subject, like teaching union plus moral panic over LGBTI education in schools. They are appalled by the current moral panic, which has left teachers facing backlash for LGBTI education. They have issued a statement saying that educators have found it difficult to promote the LGBTI inclusive education over fear of backlash, with some schools not even allowing LGBTI authors into schools. In a post on Wednesday, last week, national official for the union, Mike Corbett, said Scotland took a positive step when it passed the LGBTI inclusive education bill in 2018 that nobody fucking voted for, by the way, right? Now, yes, you can make the argument that the SNP got voted in on the Manifesto for Independence, but I'll tell you what they didn't get voted in for. No, didn't get voted in for that, right? It remains the case, however, that too many LGBTI students still go through schools experiencing little to no LGBTI inclusive education. There are often no places in schools where students can discuss, question, or explore their own feelings about sexuality and gender, or see themselves in the curriculum, right? The union says many schools have developed good practice in bringing LGBTI education into the curriculum, and many have created special spaces or lunch clubs for students. This is just reeks of like the compassion captain shit. Like, however, Mr. Corbett stated that in order for all schools to be a safe and secure space, homophobia, this is what I just find remarkable. Biphobia, like fuck off, just fuck off. Who is biphobia?
What is that? What's biphobia? What did they class that as?
Well, it's obviously when you hate and you're scared of bisexual people. Like, who the fuck? Like, I don't even like the most extreme religious people. I have never heard them going like. It's not like they have it like in the Islamic world. Like, yeah, they throw gays off buildings and stuff. They have a day dedicated to bisexuals.
Mate, the weird thing about certain countries, Islam's gay as fuck. Turkey's gay as fuck. Have you ever been to Turkey? They got some weird shit going on, like some proper fucking gay shit. Like, I remember walking through a Turkish market. I'm like a bit in shape, and I was walking down. You're like, yeah, you're Muslim, man, you're Muslim, coming over to me and touching me fucking shoulders and that. It's like, what the fuck? Little hairy little sweats.
Don't worry about it, Toffee lad. Don't worry about it. Schofield's not going to get you.
If Ross Greer's listening to the stream, you know damn well he's booking a flight to Turkey as we speak. Maybe his little white arse will get some brown bobby.
See this article here, right? This is something that I think is quite an interesting thing. So you've got this bald right of fucking nonsense that are saying that obviously they're outraged at the backlash that parents have got. That should be more than enough prudent to take this out the curriculum, that parents aren't happy that this shit's in schools. But again, it doesn't matter about what parents ultimately want. This has been pushed down the throat. Like you're hearing about the faiths in the country. Nobody wants to have faith rammed down their throat. You're going to have a tranny drag reading bitch with a fucking 19-inch python right down the throats. That's what's going to be consumed into the curriculum for children. It's an absolute farce. And then you've got schools creating safe spaces, you know, because some fucking think tank somewhere has thought this is a good idea. Probably had a fucking Martin Luther King moment. I have a dream that one day bis and trannies and queers and peers of their own will come together in solidarity in these special safe places that will unilaterally declare this is what we want in schools. It's never going to happen. It's all hocus pocus. It's baloney in the sky as far as I'm concerned. And ultimately, this goes back to what you touched on, with PVC and other people at the start of the stream. If you have the ability, the means, the time to take your children out of school and homeschool them, there is a lot of good apps, there is a lot of good books, there is a lot of good sources on the internet that you can go to that will lay out a foundation of knowledge for your child to have an even better education than they're currently getting in school.
Yeah,
That act of rebellion might not seem a lot within your local community, but if that's been done all over the country in numbers, that act of rebellion and that singular becomes a whole collective movement that pushes and sets a line in the sand that until this shit is cleared out of schools, the children simply won't be returning. And that's an entire industry done overnight.
Well, John Davidson, God bless him, he's a former teacher, isn't he? He literally sorted out a curriculum for PA. I've not looked into it, like, but if anyone, that'll be a good place to start. Like, John Davidson's based. But it's that thing, isn't it? It's obviously, as you say, it's ways and means. People work full time and that, and it's a lot easier said than done. Just taking your kids out of school, but just if you can't, just teaching the right thing at home. Because I sent you that video. There was a couple in your chat, in fact, today, DJ, where you've got kids. Like, kids, if you're a fucking good parent and your kid, you keep their natural morals and instincts intact, kids will question these little noncy teachers. Like, there's been a few videos appearing from America and Canada where they're getting shown fucking men snogging on projectors and that, and the kids are like, what the fuck is this?
Yeah.
It's
Teach
vile,
your
mate.
kids to question.
It's absolutely vile. You've got honest, decent, hard-working people that haven't bothered anyone their whole life, that have paid into a system in good faith that, you know, that their children would be educated and looked after in an environment that would be safe. Then they stand up and choose and say, we don't think that's fit for education. We don't think that's fit for anything outside the family household. And they're labelled far right. They're being what you would probably say a circus laid on to try and shut that down, to try and throw water over the flames of conversation that's happening around about that. And the whole fact that you've got these government bodies still insisting on it, actually, I think they've went into a flight mode, because this is the reaction that they're going to have to keep up until, surely to God, that crumbles, because I think there's enough will within the public now to keep pushing on this. Truly, I do. I think with many people, not everybody, but with many people, there's enough common sense and rationality there to actually say, well, do you know what? If you've got institutions like that coming out and trying to defend teachers to put that shit onto wins, then there's a few people in Scottish Parliament and other places within the Scottish education setting that are rattled by the reaction that they've had. And that there is a small one, but we'll take it whilst it is.
Lad, that's a great phrase, that water over the flames of conversation. That's fucking brilliant, that.
Yeah, and it's applicable to more or less absolutely everything going on, not just the LGBT stuff, even the stuff we were on about at the start of the stream, with the climate anxiety or the climate change, etc., etc. You know, they just completely prevent at every possible opportunity alternative views and whatnot, and they home in on issues, political issues, and because they've got complete control of every facet of society, they turn their sort of political ideas, which they are, their political beliefs, they present them as if this is fact, right? And any opposition to that fact is the problem. You know,
what's unfortunate, and I'm working class as it comes, as the pair of you are. A lot of the working class, and it's not their fault, the schools are a substitute for parents, basically. So they're just going to send them in there. They get taught what they taught, and that's what's right. And they need to fucking pay a lot more attention to the children and what they're getting taught. No offense to the working class, but, and it's, as I said, it's just a case of people fucking working too much.
A good way that you could sort of frame that argument to people is that present the idea of, like, in its most innocent form of a school, right, and say, I'll provide all the positives and the benefits of what a school could bring, right? You know, in the sense that while you're out working, your child is becoming educated, so they're ready for the world when they leave. But then, however, add in after the fact that now just think about how easily that could be exploited. Just think about how easily, if that concept ended up in the wrong hands, right? Just let them think about that. Let that point fester in their mind for a while, because that's the sort of thing that is happening as we speak. Education in and of itself is literally now nothing short of a mechanism to, as I've relayed earlier on, is a conveyor belt. Children are just coming out of school loaded full of talking points that the political class, the establishment, and whatnot want them to have. They're not coming out with the capability to critically think anymore or whatever. No, they're coming out believing exactly what politicians parrot, sorry, not puppet. So schools in and of itself, yes, they could be a great thing. And for the time they were a great thing, right? You know, like my granddad's generation, your grandparents' generation, whatnot, highly educated people, very educated people. They might not have had very much money and whatnot, but they were
Mate,
very
even
educated
my
people.
generation, I don't have any. And to be honest with you, I don't have nothing to complain about. In my, you're younger than me. You're like near enough 10 years younger than me. My education was not tainted with any of this shite.
No, in fairness, either
None
was
of this
mine.
shite.
Either was mine.
No, yeah,
The-
good.
Like I'm absolutely astounded at how far things have fallen since I left school.
Yeah.
Like it perplexes me. But obviously, in the Scottish context, the curriculum of excellence came into effect. It was finalized in around about the year 2000. But you didn't see any of the effects of the revitalized education until about 2015, 2016. I left school around about 2014 time, so I missed that, thankfully. But it started off as, you know, the basic sort of social justice shit, right? But social
I
justice
think your
covered a lot.
generation is the last generation that sort of dodged the bullet.
Yeah, they did for a multi. I've said this before, and I think I said it on John Dace's show a while ago. Not just the educational front, but just in general. In my childhood years, from like the ages of like, you know, when I could walk all the way to about 13 or 14, like consoles weren't even really a thing. So I enjoyed the life of going out and playing, right? And then I got like an Xbox when I was like 12 or 13, because that's when they started coming out properly. Like, yeah, there was like Sega and stuff, but I had the sort of perks of both lives, you know. I enjoyed how children should. I enjoyed the life that a child should have, you know, without with this disruption of consoles and whatnot, and
Spat in
phones
front
and
of a screen.
Instagram and shit. Like Facebook was just starting to become a thing back then, and Bebo was the in thing, MSN and whatnot. You know, but like I enjoyed both lives. So I see both sides. But as far as school was concerned, I can't fault my education really. There was nothing politicized about it. There was once a month we had people that aren't religious might have an issue with it, but there was a priest that would come in once a month and stuff, and we had like a sort of religious assembly once a month and stuff like that. Like, and I had no issue with that. Obviously, if you're like a Muslim or something, you might have, but back then when I was in school, there wasn't any Muslims. So like I don't know. I know it's a lot. It's just so different now, and every aspect of school age now is affected by this shit. And it's social justice is the main caveat, and that covers a lot of stuff. And it's frightening, really. It really is, because it's framed as if, as I keep pointing out, and I maybe I'm not wording it as well as I ordinarily would like to word it, but these are all political ideologies that are presented as fact. Social justice sounds like namby-pamby, wet wipery, but it's malevolent. Like all this shit, like racial justice, climate justice, gender justice, feminism, you know, racism, and fucking whatever
But see
else.
many things, DJ, right? See very many aspects of this. If you were, look at what's behind these phrases, if they were just put down on paper to 15 and 16-year-olds, you know, social justice, tackling poverty, clean environment, these are things that 9 out of 10 people would rationally look at and go, that's good, that's good, that's good, that's good. But they're not looking at what's actually been behind that. They're just seeing what's been labelled as a representation of something. And I think with many points, that probably this goes back to maybe something that happened years and years ago, you know, where parents maybe took time when the kids got home to question about their education, help them with their homework, maybe delved into it a wee bit, and then they were kind of up to speed and kind of thinking, right, well, little Joe Bloggs is at this point and they're learning about A, B's and C's with this. Nowadays, I think with many factors, possibly parents aren't doing that. And I guess part of that would apply to this would be just to take it on good faith, the fact that we have schools in this country, and you know, you're learning about all these poor Waynes and other schools. For example, Ukraine. Waynes can't go to school in Ukraine because of the big bad war that's going on there. But at least our wee Joe Bloggs is getting a sterling education. When the truth couldn't be further away, they're polar opposites. I just wish that there was a wee bit more hands-on with the wording and the actual subjects themselves and what the fair representation is, because I think if we go down to the nitty-gritty and showing a mirror of that, I'm not saying everybody, but a lot of people on that day would question things. Might not instantly change, but would definitely question it.
No, I agree. And on that point, I just want to say, opinionated Scotsman, I'm the same age as you, and trust me, there's quite a lot of fans my age too. Well, our age, I should say.
Do you know what? But at the same time, it's pretty encouraging. I would say there was most of them are fucking idiots around that age. So the fact that the pair of years aren't is a testament.
I wouldn't say that's encouraging that most of us my age are idiots, so there's only two of us.
Good point.
but yeah, fine, we're exactly the same age, bud. But
hey, by the way, sorry, big up the Sega Mega Drive.
It was good, Sonic boy. But I wanted to say that just on that point, Scott's like the other issue, and I've highlighted this before, that I feel is like it's the sort of buzzwords that they use. So let's just take anti-racism, for example. So your child comes home from school and you're sort of like a politically apathetic person, or you just believe that the school that your child goes to is doing the best for your child. Well, what did you learn at school today? Oh, we were learning about anti-racism. What does anti-racism mean? Oh, it means not to be like mean to like brown people. Well, you're not going to have an issue with that when you're just an ordinary working person, are you? Like nobody, like they've got no reason to really read between the lines or delve into what that actually entails, because if they did so, they would see it as critical race theory that hates white people. That's just one example. Like the LGBT stuff, that's a really opposed example by a lot of people, because LGBT for most normal people, despite ginger pubes, his best efforts to gaslight people, like it's about bumming, it's about sexuality. So presenting that stuff to children doesn't go down well with a lot of parents. But the other political aspects of, like, you know, as I said, anti-race and whatnot, these are different things. Like it's very difficult to sort of break down those barriers for people to see. No matter how hard you push, and you say, oh, look what they're actually teaching. People are like, well, what's wrong with not being racist? It's like, that's not what it is, though.
Talking about insidious wise, the LGBTQ stuff is bad, but the critical race theory, particularly in Scotland, is a fucking 100 times more damaging, I think.
It's disgusting. And we'll come on to that last. We've got one more thing to do that before that, though. But I want to highlight this comment because, Scott, you might know the answer to this. Or what's your opinion on it, even, because I know that you're a man of faith. I'm for PA Scotland and PA England. I was at the Forge Parkhead shopping mall, Glasgow. The last 2 days, there was a rainbow flag outside there. But what does the symbol really mean? I'm sure that there is a sort of Christian aspect to this. Is it not? Is it not fucking like there's a rainbow? Not. I could be totally wrong here.
Yeah, the rainbow is a sign of the covenant with Noah, that basically when the flood came to an end, the covenant of God and Noah was going to be fulfilled, the promise that he was originally made before he made the ark, simplified in a nutshell. But the thing is they have literally taken that, and what they have done here is they've degraded that. The symbology of that is an absolute kicking the stones to the church. And I think I spoke to John Davidson about this 2 or 3 weeks ago on that stream that I had done with him randomly. And I had said you won't get any help from the church. You won't get any interest from the church because the church are equally complicit. The church are just too busy trying to be worldly. They're trying to appease people instead of actually being the backbone of the community. This flag is nothing more than an absolute abhorrent political toolkit to enable a mass doctrine of people into believing that the minority are somehow suppressed and oppressed and victimised for something that, quite frankly, 99% of the public couldn't give a flying fuck about. The truth of it all simply is this, that the minority of the people who claim to be oppressed within Western society are the absolute intolerable people that is forcing insidious narratives and agendas through academia and political activists within local councils and parliament to fulfill a global dynasty, to overthrow traditional values, traditional families, traditional working cities, and traditional agriculture, and to dumbing us down to an absolute minuscule atom of what a human capable, functioning, rational, and intelligent person should be. That is what entirely that stands for.
Amen. I hope
Amen.
that clarifies things for you, Stephen Smith or Stephen Smith.
Do you know what annoyed? I say annoyed. Disappointed me. Scott Armors. Do you remember when the other? Oh, it's good 3 weeks ago now. You posted on your channel. You clipped it. What his dialogue? What he said about that? It was a good 3 minutes. The most amazing thing I've ever heard. And I said, clip that. Do you know the one I mean about good versus evil?
Yeah.
It annoyed me, the lack of views that got. It really fucking annoyed me. Not that we're in it for views, but people need to fucking hear this shit. I posted it all over, before I disappeared, I posted it all over Telegram. I was like, listen to what this man has to say. You've brought me, I'm a cultural Christian, but I struggle with my faith. And you've very much, you brought me more around to that side kind of thing. I do think, I'm not intelligent enough to explain it, to be honest, but yeah.
Timothy, I'm going
Not
to
as
say
clever as
something
you.
very quickly, mate. I'm not an intelligent nor an articulate person. I'm just someone who's born and raised in a working class city that speaks from the heart. And sometimes I put things and I think, I've done all right there. And other times I look and I think, wow, I just made an absolute arse of that. Never ever put yourself down, mate, because at the end of the day, you're standing for something that you believe in, and that it goes a long way. That is actually more than what a lot of people are actually willing to do these days. We're all intelligent individuals. Some people have just got an absolute gift of writing. Some people have got an absolute gift of speaking, but ultimately we all have things that we are very, very good at, mate.
200 years ago, mate, you'd have been like the leader of a town. Like say on the American frontier, like a preacher in a town, that would have been you. You're lost in this current time, mate. You belonged on a battlefield a couple 100 years ago, mate. What a guy.
Oh, aye, with his fucking his monologues, his TED talks. I don't know where I would be 200 years ago.
Big time.
I dread to think where I'd be 200 years ago if I was in that time with the views that I hold and whatnot. Well, I don't know. I'd probably be like fucking listen about all the bear.
But more do you like belong on a battlefield in a kilt with some woad on, swinging an axe around like a good 800 years ago? That's where you belong. Born in the wrong time, lads.
No, you know what? I'd be like the guy, like Willie Wallace is giving his, or Robert the Bruce is giving his speech to all the Scots ready for battle, and I'll be just sitting. I'll be standing next to whispering in his ear. And I remember to say this. Remember where it comes from. Do you need the link? I've got the link here. let me just go through my stone writing here. Right. Yeah, it comes from this. You know what I mean? Oh fuck! But what was this before I go on here? My local church community center had George Floyd posters in the window, then Ukraine flags, then rainbow flags. Well, you know, it was quite a common theme even up here. There was the the BLM.
Well,
and the
sorry to
rainbow
interrupt,
shit.
Budgie.
Hey, you got like
want
the
to
wrong
talk
way
about
round.
Ukrainian flags? Did you see the state of Liverpool over Eurovision? Our entire city was decked out in Ukrainian flags as if we've been fucking occupied. Liverpool's bad enough in the first place, but fucking hell. It was like we'd been occupied by a foreign army. It was weird.
The Ukraine stuff's just a bit of a grey area. Like I still firmly hold the belief it's a total fucking gay up, but like so many people disagree. So it's like one of those things I just don't like talking about very often.
A J-up.
Yeah, well, yeah, okay, but like so many people. One thing I will say, and I'm not like slating anybody in particular, but see people that think like fucking, and this is why I mock them sort of. I call them Papa Putin. People that think that like Vladimir Putin, he's just gonna like boot down the doors of Great Britain and save you all from degeneracy because he's such a base and trad man. I'm sorry. I think one of two things about you, if you hold that belief: one, you're a pretty pitiful person that you are begging for a fucking foreign leader to come and save you, or you're just a bit deluded. Like, I'm sorry, it's like, yeah,
Putin is a hardcore multiculturalist. He's literally said it many a time.
Polar, whatever the fuck. But that's just my 2 cents. He opposes like LGBT stuff. Like, woohoo! Fucking Douglas Ross does too. So what?
Yeah, lads, do you want to know just a little quick anecdote before we move on about that's just tied into the Russia-Ukraine shit? Do you know the Azov battalion in the Ukraine? One of them, many years ago, 2010 it was. He's called Gabriel. He was meant to be one of these, the dickheads. He came over to the UK and tried to recruit a load of British nationalists. And a lot of my mates went and fucking spoke to him. I spoke to him and I just thought, you're a fucking larping little dickhead. I know people who have gone over to the Ukraine and have like weapons training experts with these people. And it's just fucking, as you said, a gay op. It is. That's what it is. I know firsthand that that's exactly what it is.
Now just look at all the things that are happening now that like the war's being blamed on. Who the fuck's that? Oh, it's Censorship. Oh, like.
All right, sense.
Hello. You started without me. I didn't see. Sorry, lads. Hello, everybody. Hope everybody's well.
How's it going, mate?
Yeah, not bad, not bad. I see you've got Humsy Useless teed.
Oh yeah. I thought
whoa, we bit of respect. He's a sovereign First Minister of Scotland now.
Yeah, don't have an Anglo fucking dissing your Scottish Parliament there.
Yeah. I found, sir. Anyway, never mind.
This guy's trying to make us cashing in gingy bolts, for fuck's sake. Give him a round of applause.
Base brown man, But so just letting you know, Censorship, right? We respect science on the stream.
It is what look. It's Pride Week. Where's your outfit? I'm getting in the spirit here instead of you reprobates. Bloody hell! Look at the state of you.
Hey, do you know what? I've just noticed there Humza's tie. Is that his little fucking tartan that he's made up? Do you reckon?
No, the Pakistani tartan's green.
Yeah.
But no,
that's probably a piece that you got for ScotRail.
Right, but yeah, I do want to touch upon this very briefly, like this fucking pantomime shit. That's how I view it. But so obviously Nicola Sturgeon on Sunday was arrested, and then she was released without charge, the same as her questionably.
Sorry, mate. This has got to be. Look at your bird's comment there. She haggis tartan. Fucking hell. Think about it.
We're gonna have words, by the way. Don't you dare disrespect our First Minister. Okay. But so yeah. let's I'm gonna mute myself and play what Humza said, because obviously he's been asked about whether or not Sturgeon should be suspended from the SNP, and he had this to say.
For me, it's quite personally painful. People know my friendship, Nicola Sturgeon. But of course, I've got to separate that from the really important job I've got to do as First Minister. That is, of course, not to comment on a live police investigation and to make sure I'm getting on with the day job. And that's why we're delighted to be here, and I'm delighted to be here at the National Treatment Centre Highland.
Will you suspend Nicola Sturgeon while this investigation takes place?
No, I'll not suspend Nicola's membership. I'll treat her in the same way I've treated, for example, Colin Beattie. Those that have been released without charge, I see no reason to suspend their membership.
Labour leader Anna Sarwar has said that you're too weak to suspend Nicola Sturgeon. Is that the case?
I know Anna Sauer, of course, previously lost an election to Nicola Sturgeon by quite a significant majority. So I can understand wanting to see Nicola Sturgeon out of the SNP and probably out of the Scottish Parliament. But I'll do what I believe is right to the values of natural justice. And Nicola Sturgeon, like Colin Beattie, like Peter Murrell, of course, released without charge. And therefore, I think there's no reason for the membership for me.
Hey, have you noticed, lads? It might be just my little tism that's picked up on this. Do you know the pattern of speech of foreigners, even though they come over here, they still speak with that pattern of speech of wherever they're from. So he speaks with this quick kind of, he talks in little wee short sentences, and he does that. They always do that. They speak in these. They still speak in that pattern.
I can't comment on such things. I have to remain neutral. I'm fence sitting.
I will say this though. See, when I heard Colin Beattie, Nicola Sturgeon, Peter Murrell, I couldn't help think that you couldn't get an epic, any better lineup for a Scottish version of The Hills Have Eyes, because they freak show degenerate bastards would smash it right out the fucking park.
Oh.
Imagine bumping into Humpty up Loch Ness, mate.
Well, no comment.
Scotland's remember you said you seen them people with like tiki torches that night when you were up Loch Ness?
Aye. I'm pretty sure it was like fucking Satanist or something. Like, you know, occult worshippers. But you just never know. Very close to Boleskine House, so I can't say for certain that it wasn't. But yeah, obviously she was taken into custody and questioned as a suspect, but not charged. After she was released, Dinlip said in a statement, "To find myself in a situation I did when I am certain I have committed no offence is both a shock and deeply distressing." You know, it's very great to say things like this, but like at the end of the day, like hypothetically speaking, when this is all like legit and real and like none of this is a gay opera or a psyop or a waste of time pantomime, right? She's hardly going to come out and say, after she was released, Dinlip said in a statement, "Oh, I'm fucking guilty, and the police let me go get it up." Yeah. So, you know, just meaningless dribble as far as I'm concerned. But obviously, this is all predicated on the back of missing funds. But what I will say, just before I get like any views that you might have on all of this, first of all, where are the missing funds? Where are they? And second of all, it doesn't look great, does it? You know, no matter what way you slice it, it doesn't look great that the former First Minister of Scotland gets arrested. So does her fucking husband. Half of the SNP, well, like bigwigs have either stepped down and resigned or have been arrested. It's a bit odd. Doesn't look great. So, yeah, I don't know what Toffee, you said you had a sort of opinion on what you think might happen in the future.
Just sure. You'll all agree with me, I'm sure. It's the hardcore SNP members and the people who have donated to her. They're gonna see this as a conspiracy theory where they're like, oh, they're just arresting her. They're trying to fucking squash Scottish nationalism. That's why they've arrested her, and that's why they're paranoid about the funds. That was all it is. I think that's what's going to happen with the hardcore. Like the based fucking really hardcore SNP members. I've had encounters with them on Telegram and I've tried to speak to them recently. and they're absolutely fucking insane, and you can't reason with them. And everything is England's fault.
Oh no, without a doubt. No, I agree with that. I mean, there's already been a wild accusation that the police were only like searching her house and whatnot because of misogyny.
That's brilliant.
Genuinely was said, but I do. There's even been claims that this was like some sort of, who was that, Scott? You might remember. Somebody suggested that this was all happening because it was like a plot to like just ruin Sturgeon's reputation. That's all this is about. Somebody's like out to get Sturgeon. I can't remember who that was. It was like her
I
former
remember
advisor
an
or something.
article. This was a while ago. That I don't know. I don't think Sensum or Toffee would know, right? But you might have heard the guy's name. A guy called Sean Clerkin that used to be an SNP member. He was the one who got the ball rolling with this. In fact, he's a guy responsible for the famous banner, "England out of Scotland."
Oh, I don't mind that.
I think the way that people talk about this guy, that he's a quote-unquote conspiracy theorist nutcase, and ultimately that's where I can see this playing out as. I don't think it will go anything along the lines of, this is the establishment out to get Sturgeon. I think this will be played down to, a couple of disgruntled extreme individualists with conspiracy theories have tried to dampen or very well like that slander her reputation. But you raise a good point. Where did the missing funds go? That's something that I don't believe that you'll get an answer to. Pretty much like the missing gold in the basement of the Twin Towers just mysteriously vanished and unaccounted for. That will be equal to the SNP funds. And will there be a culprit or a person brought to justice and criminalised and sent to jail for it? No, they'll probably blame some guy in the middle of Glencoe living in a fucking tent like Saddam Hussein in the hole. This isn't going to go anywhere. This is theatre. And I put my telegram the other day, I was at Twitter, that whilst this is happening right now, because Sturgeon could have been taken in for questioning, she could have been arrested beforehand, but they've not done it. They've done this now for a reason, and if I was MD with a wee bit of time during the day, I would keep my eye on the Scottish Government website, I'd be looking on Twitter feeds, because they're working on something to pass through Parliament right now. What that is, I have no idea. But believe you me, they've done this now as a window of opportunity for something.
So do you think, lads, that you and DJ, Scottish lads, do you, because when we were on the stream the other month, Clive said, and I questioned it, he said this is going to cause this is going to fuck the SNP up, it's going to cause a serious dent. Is it? Do you think it is? Are people going to keep voting for them? Or are they going to hemorrhage voters?
See, a while ago, me, DJ, and Clive done a stream, and ultimately we spoke in great length. I don't know if DJ will remember about the fraction within the SNP that eventually became Alba, and now you've got other kind of parties that have branched off of the two of them and kind of became small but yet independence-based parties. I think what you will find in the next 2 to 3 years tops, and people might disagree with this, but this is my honest opinion with you, Toffee, they will not be able to wave that carrot because every single main person that was used as an influencer, the face of the people, will be discredited and it will crumble round about them. The independence campaign will literally die before the next general election in this country. You will find that a lot of people will be completely disgruntled with it. They will switch off from it because they will see it as inevitable, so they'll have to continue to pursue local politics or trying to, push Labour into it. Because when it's all said and done, simply put, Scotland won't be an independent country, whether that's something you agree with or you don't, it's neither here nor there. Because right now, as we know, national and sovereign identity is being literally ripped up. They're trying to push for a world without borders. They're trying to universalise everything. So the idea in the next 10 to 15, 20 years of independent, prospering, self-determined states is hocus pocus and pie in the sky, and people need to get in line and see it for exactly what it really is.
Because I might be wrong. I'm not as clued in as you. Is the Alba Party, is that basically just disgruntled SNP members? Because
Yeah,
recently,
it's SMP light, mate, basically.
Yeah, the
Yeah.
only difference between the Alba Party and the SNP is that the Alba Party sort of oppose the gender stuff, the turf issue, the
but
transgender
DJ, do
issue.
you remember when we were doing that Tucci and the Saxon and Salmon? We had that big launch.
Yeah,
And literally the
and
front
they had like
row
black people.
was
right?
every single bloody BAME community going, wasn't it? That was the
Yeah,
Alba
it's
Party.
literally that's the only difference between the two is that it's the that the Alex Salmon's party like disagree with like the idea that like a man who claims to be a woman is a woman. That's it. That's the only difference. As far as European Union renewal is concerned, they're all for it. As far as immigration is concerned, they're all for it. As far as
DJ, let me just say,
politics and climate change,
DJ, let me just say this, right? If Alex Salmond had still been in power and hadn't been deposed, right, Alex Salmond would have been all up for sucking a woman's cock, right? If the tables had been turned, do you know what I mean? That's how duplicitous these fuckers are. You can't trust any of them.
No, I don't.
You know what? As much as it pains me to admit, Scotland, particularly Glasgow, is almost like, do you know the way America farts and the rest of the world follows?
Right.
Scotland is sort of like that with Liverpool. You wouldn't know it if you didn't live here. We've just literally, we vote Labour, hands down, no doubt that you will only ever vote in Labour. But we've just set up, they just set up a party in Liverpool called the Liverpool Independence Party. And it's almost identical to the Alba Party, and it's fucking disturbing.
And I assume they wish to just rejoin the EU.
Yeah.
Standard
See,
practice.
Glasgow, mate. Glasgow, in a nutshell, is politically like California wants to be demographically like London or Birmingham.
Same with Liverpool, mate. Horrible.
But yeah, I'm going to go for a piss, by the way, in case anybody wonders where my silence is. But aye.
DJ, you don't have to fill anything, mate. You know, remember, I'm Scottish. You're up in the Highlands. You've not got a toilet. Just use your bucket.
You could have just muted your mic, mate, and went for the piss instead of
in case he's all went silent and wanted me to like go on to the next thing. I had to be. But I will say for a go though, James Rankin, the guy that made like the sort of satirical white video a while ago, you know, the Ned's outside white with their white trainers white. If he ever listens, I'll have to get him on a stream at some point. But yeah, I'll be back in a minute.
Somebody's just said while he goes for a slash, someone's just said in the chat, where is it? Someone just said in the chat that they think that Scotland is going to vote Labour rather than the SNP. There's going to be a deluge of Labour voters.
Yeah, but like the problem, but the thing is, tough, right? And we've probably broached upon this before, right? If they vote in Labour, they're voting for Anas Sarwar. Thanks. So you've got a choice between fucking Humza Useless and Anas Sarwar. So basically, you've got one half answer or another. You know. Oh, thanks for the representation, guys. Brilliant, thank you.
To be honest, I couldn't name any Scottish Labour politician at all. To be honest,
it would be, in fairness, right. The only thing is because obviously they're now starting to, you know, the rats are leaving the ship in the Tory party, which is amazing because the ship's actually made out of fucking rats, yeah, and you know, they're making it sound like, oh, you know, this is going to force Dishy Rishi, rich boy, into a... He doesn't give a shit anyway, you know. He doesn't care. He's minted. You know, he doesn't give two shakes of a monkey's toss what happens to everybody else. He literally doesn't care. And whatever happens, just like old Choppers Ardern, he's going to end up falling on his feet in some cushy number with the WF or the the UN or some other multinational globalist organization. However, as it stands now, yeah, and I don't think this is redeemable, from a an election perspective, even if it goes into next year. It's pretty much a shoo-in that Labour will get in power. The question is, will they get in power outright, or will they have to form some kind of coalition? Well, the only coalitions that they can possibly make is Lib Dem, SNP, or Labour. Well, or they win outright as Labour. But in order to win outright as Labour, then yeah, you're quite right. Scotland is going to have to turn quite red in order to give Labour, because they'll take back all of what was called the Red Wall. That's gone now. The people who thought for one moment that the Tories would actually do what they wanted to do, which was reduce immigration, never been higher, not be this bloody state-funded charabanc like Jeremy Corbyn, 2 years of furlough from the magic money tree. So everybody from the Red Wall who thought, right, well, sod this for a game of soldiers. And I'm talking about, constituencies that have never, ever been Tory. I think the one I'm in now, until this time around, I don't think it had ever been Tory. And now they just literally go and do shit all over the people who voted for them for the very opposite things of what they've actually done. So they're going to just jump straight, because they're going to say, right, well, sod them, because, if at least if we do go back to Labour, then there's probably going to be a few beans. It's still going to be as shit as ever. They're still going to give our country away a piece at a time. But at least there'll probably be a couple of extra pennies in my arse pocket, because that's the way that the Labour scumbags work, communism sort of thing. Let's get everybody tricked up on UVI, like what we mentioned at the weekend. But my greatest fear, believe it or not, is if I would, well, put it this way, I would much rather have, and I know this sounds terrible because I hate those fuckers, but I want the Tories destroyed. I literally want every fucking last vestige of the Tories to be destroyed, and every one of these fucking rats leaving that sinking ship now, as soon as they land on shore, I want somebody to stamp on the fucking heads. I want those rats fucking thrown back in the water, snap neck, right?
You say this, mate. It's like, I agree with you. It's very difficult as like a Liverpool nationalist to be voting for fucking the Labour Party. I want the Tories destroyed. Martin W just said to me there, "You're sick of Liverpool." Lad, I was sick of Liverpool 20 years fucking ago, mate. I'm like the third most famous nationalist in Liverpool. I'm well sick of them. Don't worry about that.
I'll tell you what, lads. I'll finish my point, right, and then I'll hand it back to you, because I'd be interested to hear all three of your opinion on this. But I'll tell you something now. I would much rather Labour have an outright victory. Even if it's like 10, 20 seats, I would much rather Labour have an outright victory than getting into a coalition with the SNP. I think that would be the worst of both worlds. I honestly, I know Labour's going to shit all over us and do all this crap, but I reckon if it had to be done, a Labour SNP coalition literally would be the death knell for this country. I don't know about you, lads. I'll pass it back over to you, lads. What you think about that one?
Well, I'll just say, I think we've spoken about this before in the past. I'd love to believe what Scott's Armour said earlier on about that there will never be a referendum. I'd love to believe that, because obviously the referendum that's been proposed is leave the UK to rejoin the EU. It's not like, no, fuck off, right? And in the event of Labour having to some sort of formulate an agreement with the SNP, that's what's going to happen. It's going to be a referendum. Now, it really just depends on who's pulling the strings and whatnot, politically speaking, how that referendum goes, because I don't even believe referendums go the way that, it's just a matter of who votes for what. I think everything's orchestrated. That's just my belief, whether that's cognitive dissonance on my part or whatever, it doesn't matter, right? It's just, I fear, admittedly, that Labour SNP coalition means referendum, and that spells trouble for Scotland. However, to the point I've highlighted there about Scotland not voting Tory. That's correct. 2017 was a sort of anomaly where the SNP lost a third of their seats and people started voting Tory for like the first time ever in a long time. The SNP have managed to establish such a foothold in Scotland for so long, not because of their policies, not because of their capability and how they govern, because quite frankly, they're fucking shit at what they do. They're just useless, absolutely useless, screeching left-wing dickheads, and they've hijacked nationalism. Hence my Twitter description, where I explicitly state, I hate hijacked nationalism. That's what they've done. They dangle the independence carrot, and they've managed to conflate the lines between independence and European Union renewal. They've got two different demographics of voters now. They've got people that want independence, and they've also got people who want to rejoin the EU, who voted to remain in the EU in 2016, who still want to rejoin the EU. They've also got the perfect sort of combination or concoction of ingredients at play here, where the mainstream media never call them out on their blatant hypocrisy and for a multitude of things, including the fact that in the event of winning a referendum in independence, they've ruled out a referendum to rejoin the EU or not, despite the fact claiming that they're all about democracy. They never bring up the fact that in 2016, Scottish voters were told that if you want your independence referendum, you need to vote to remain in the EU. That's never brought up. I could rattle off a rake of different things. They're never called out for these things. They're never held to account. On top of that, this quote unquote cost of living crisis nonsense, right, which is all manufactured and artificial in nature, as far as I'm concerned. A lot of it on the back of this shit with Russia and whatnot, sustainable development, lingering in the background, Agenda 2030. That's all blamed on Brexit. People know no different up here in Scotland because all they ever hear is Brexit being blamed for everything by the mainstream media in abundance. That's why, according to opinion polls anyway, despite there's a bit of a confliction with opinion polls. Opinion polls say that people don't want independence right now, and that's partly because of all the shit show with the SNP and whatnot. But at the same time, a lot more people, according to opinion polls, let me stress, are actually more in favour now of rejoining the EU than were prior, right? There's a fucking issue there. So in the event of Scotland seeing a coalition with the SNP and Labour spells trouble for Scotland, as far as I'm concerned. So I'm with you on that front. But as far
Can I
as
ask
voting
quick, bro?
Labour,
Sorry, just a few comments.
let me just say this. But as
Go
far
on,
as
sorry.
voting Labour, simply to put two fingers up to the Tories, no.
PBC, Martin W, and Sensum has agreed as well. Obviously, funny. Who do you choose, Jeffrey Dahmer or Ted Bundy? What's the alternative then? What should we do? Like, what's your opinion? Like, I agree. I don't want to vote for none of these fucking cunts. What should we do?
See, that's a multi-layered question, and originally about Sensum asked, because the thing is, fundamentally, I believe, for the sake of, if you want to call it, quote unquote, the establishment of the integrity of the Westminster Parliament, they will not get into any sort of deal with the SNP, because strictly speaking, right? Strictly speaking, and I could be wrong on this, and if I am wrong, please correct me, right? But I'm just looking at this and trying to be rational and logical in my thinking. If, hypothetically, that there was a coalition, right, and that DJ just laid out, there was a case and Scotland had somehow left the United Kingdom, that means politically and legally overnight the UK has drastically changed, which you could actually make the case for another general election, which Labour very well could lose. I don't think that would be appealing to any Labour voting person. I really don't. I don't believe in a political solution, so I'm trying to be mindful of my beliefs in what the question actually is. I also think that if, which I do not believe that would even be entertained, a coalition, but if it was to happen, it would literally be like all the worst parts of the Bible. Things would accelerate and be totally damning within 5 to 10 years. Things that we have been brought up with and accustomed with that we still hang on to would be pretty much an absolute far cry. Now, I will say this though, what a lot of people need to remember, at least within Scotland, SNP's in a coalition with the Greens. The last time there was a vote, the SNP didn't do too well. Labour made gains, Conservatives made gains as well. With everything that's happened and all the things that have got worse and all this shit that's happening in schools and public libraries, regardless of what friends that the SNP have within any political think tanks or papers or whatever, the jury is still out on them. They have continuously got worse. They haven't achieved an overall majority the way that they have been clamouring on for years. Like
No.
such fucking degenerates like Tommy Sheridan chanting out in 2015 and 2016 and 2017, we got 40 odd %, we'll get 70%. Pipe dream, mate. Pie in the fucking sky. Nobody can be asked with that fucking Marxist connotation bullshit. We don't want it. We're fed up with it. But the thing is, the SNP are on their way out. And I know people might say that's wishful thinking, but I believe over the years, the things that they have done, the absolute damage to the economy, the damage they have done to industries, the damage that they have done in households, the damage that they've done to families, and then you apply the hate crime bill and all this shit that's going on right now, and then you've got missing funds and whatnot and all the rest of it. People will only follow a carrot so long before they become deflated themselves. Kind of like us, the obstacles that we face because we've allowed ourselves to get deflated and we're in the position we are in just now. The tables are going to turn with that for us, but equally, the tables are going to turn with them as well. So I think, realistically going forward, there will be no coalition. There will absolutely no be, because I don't think Labour needs to negotiate with them for simply how bad the SNP have been.
Well, I do hope you're right. I do hope you're right that they're on the way out there. I don't know. Because the one thing I will say before I move on to this last story for the night is it's the youth that concern me. Because at the end of the day, it's more so prominent with the young in our country, where they're more quote-unquote progressive, more in favour of independence, more supportive of the SNP. And that's what concerns me, in all honesty. Because bear in mind as well, with the United Nations Children's Rights Charter and all the political shit in our education as it is at present, children are being politicised. And on top of that, by extension, as they become politicised, they home in towards the SNP. That's why I fear, and remember Angus Robertson said it so elegantly, paraphrasing him, of course, that obviously the people that vote Remain will be dying out soon. So there is that. Scott Starmer's just left, though. Don't know if that was an accident or not, but there's one last story.
No, he says he's got a phone call, mate. So obviously he's using
No,
his.
lads, the pair he is, because I genuinely don't even know your opinion, to be honest. We're talking about, obviously it needs to be talking about. I personally believe that I'd like to hear your opinion, because I genuinely don't know. There's no political solution to any of this. Agree or disagree?
Before I answer that, let me just say, Scott, if he's on the phone, he's probably not listening, but I'll sort of delay going on to that last story until you're back, purely on the basis of I wouldn't mind getting your opinion. But if you're away for a while, I'm obviously going to have to conclude my stream with that last thing. But
No,
to your point,
he's going to be right back. So I would imagine he's just picking up the call because he's using his phone.
Yeah, just wait for him. I had to duck out then. Me fucking stupid dogs came in.
All right. Well, I'm pretty sure. What stream was it that was on? It was the one with you and 42 Censorship. Pretty much said that sometimes I do sort of say it aloud. It's something that I don't like talking about because I don't really like to be that guy that is brandished as a sort of pessimist and whatnot. You know, if people want to pursue political routes or have that sort of belief in that sort of system, then fair enough, go for it. I encourage you, all the best to you and whatnot. I'm not going to be the guy that brings you down. For me personally, though, it's more a case of even when I was in school and I was like a teenager and whatnot, I always believed it didn't matter who you vote for, they're all the same. And funnily enough, that's something that most people are actually in agreement with. Like, irrespective of whether or not you vote or not, most people believe wholeheartedly that most politicians, if not all, are liars. Nothing changes. That in and of itself, like, should ring alarm bells. But as far as I'm concerned, just to put it in the most simplistic of terms without being sort of facetious to anybody that believes there's a political solution, why is it that so many people, especially in our spheres, will sit on Odyssey or write Telegram posts or whatever, berating people with little hats in their head and saying that the system is controlled by them, but yet think that they're going to infiltrate that system as a political party while posting all about it on social media or whatever the fuck they do, telling said people with small hats in their head they're going to infiltrate that system, they're going to infiltrate their system and change things. Like, if a system is created or a system has been infiltrated with the sole purpose of destroying your nation, destroying your culture, and fundamentally replacing you as a people and destroying everything that you ever created and that you stand for, how the fuck do you think you're going to infiltrate that said system and change things? As far as I'm concerned, the only plausible thing that people can do is, and Woodlander's still in the chat, I've seen him up there earlier on, I'll just highlight his comment. Woodlander's in the chat. He is the sort of man who, he's a lot more articulate than I am, and he's provided one of the few solutions that are actually out there.
Yes.
Stop buying into a fucking system and wasting your time and thinking that, oh, if we just vote in this party, they won't be as bad as that party and whatnot, because fundamentally, as far as I'm concerned, all you're actually doing is giving these people the sort of justification that they require to remain in these positions. In an ideal world, and I've said this on the stream with 42 and Sentiment, in an ideal world, in my personal opinion, if everybody, and this is a big ask, it's never going to happen, if everybody just stopped voting, right, these dickheads would be campaigning for no reason. These people would hold no power. The only reason that they have a semblance of power and authority is because the system is upheld by your vote. Stop voting for dickheads who are overpaid, supposed to be public servants, but do nothing but implement policies you didn't fucking vote for that are hidden behind in the small print of manifestos, if they're even mentioned at all. And I will just add this last thing. How many things have been implemented in the last few years that you didn't actually vote for that are globally agreed upon? They're global it's a global consensus. You've got your Sustainable Development Goal. You've got your climate crisis. You had the lockdowns. You had Operation Lockstep, Agenda 201. And now you've got a new thing coming down the fucking pipeline, and not just digital ID in 20-minute neighborhoods. You've also got the fact they want to ban cars. And you've also got this, what's it called? That, oh, fuck. They've got that thing coming down the what is it called?
The pandemic
WHO. No, the WHO. What is that thing called? The somebody in the chat is going to help
the
me.
treaty.
Where is she? Where's PBC?
WHO pandemic treaty.
That's the one. The pandemic.
Yeah.
Who
voted for that? So you voted Tory, right? Put it this way, right? You voted Tory back in the day because you wanted to see a reduction in immigration. What did you get? You got more immigration, and on top of that, you had the migrant compact signed. You voted Tory because you wanted to see a reduction in immigration. Then you've seen more immigrants coming in, and now you're getting a pandemic treaty, right? You voted for Tory because they supposedly supported Brexit in abundance, and what are you getting in return? A climate crisis.
Hey, send him. Sorry, mate. I know it's your turn to talk. I'm about to take the dogs out. I just want to have my last final say about this. Talk about the Woodlanders initiative. Sorry, mate. Just to everyone and anyone in the chat and everyone who was going to listen afterwards, there's no political solution. No offense to any groups. I'm sure they've got good intentions at heart. But going around and giving people bottles, giving the homeless bottles of water and dropping banners and doing all this shit is going to do fuck all. There's a fuck ton of, not talking about them people, but there's a fuck ton of grifters who are attached to them. So if you want to fucking, like, people do streams a few times a week and you throw a shit ton of money at them, if you've got money lying around, throw it at the Woodlander, because he's the only person who's, not the only person, but he's the main person now who is actually doing something. His initiative, buy land, get involved. There's no political solution. Throw your money all you want at these groups, and they can do the fucking streams or whatever they fucking do. It's not going to provide any kind of solution. If you've got spare cash lying around, throw it towards the Woodland Initiative, because everyone else is pointless at the moment. You fucking start throwing pointless money, autistic money, at little divvies who are attaching themselves to the death of the white race. I'm ducking out, lads. I've got to take the dogs out. Peace. Love yous.
No
Hey,
worries.
buddy. Yeah.
Right.
For me, mate, I mean, I can't remember what the last point was because Toffee just literally scuppered me thought process the last bit you were mentioning. But the first part, when you're talking about there is no political solution, I think at the national level there isn't. But
Council, maybe.
I think at the local level there is. And let me explain my reasoning. Because you can have far more influence over your direct community, especially in one where you're living cheek and jowl with the actual people who live there. Now, what you have to understand is, you know, at the council level, the treachery is just as abound for all of these lickspittle twats who are Tory councillors, Lib Dem councillors, Labour councillors, you know, the same with the SNP councillors, yeah? They are the microcosm of the macro, which is they just toe the party line jib and jowl, you know what I mean? Whereas if you were a true independent, because the thing is, you're saying, you know, you vote for this, you vote for that, you know, vote for Tory, vote for this, vote for that. And you're saying, like, you know, in terms of the last few years, it's been over 30 years since John Bull Major, usurped Margaret Thatcher in 1991, and then miraculously went on to win by the skin of his teeth the following election against Neil Kinnock. From that particular backstabbing, you know, any party that's formed through through treachery from within, you can't trust them. You just can't trust them. So from John Bull Major, you know, usurping Maggie Thatcher in 91, all the way through to now, you know, I would genuinely say when, you know, we've had, because if you look at the stats we've got now, Labour came to power in 97, yeah? They had the reins for 13 years. We are now in the 13th year of a Tory administration, the so-called nasty party, the so-called let's be hard on welfare, you know, let's be hard on immigration. The immigration numbers, as we all know, have never been higher. The amount of money pissed up the wall, particularly on nonsense from 2020 to 2022, with furlough schemes and all the other bullshittery that went with that.
Yeah.
You know, they cost us almost £500 billion. No, you know, it's not just my kids or their kids. Probably my kids' kids, my grandkids, if not longer, are going to be paying that shit off through fucking taxation. And the debt ceiling's just going to keep on growing. And this is how they want to shoe in this UVI thing, yeah? For me, and Woodland is right, for me, the reason why I would say if there is a genuine local candidate, an independent who's not tied to any of these lickspittle shitbag paid for by globalist companies, they're all paid for by the same people, whether it's Soros, whether it's the WF, the Bill and Melinda Gates Foundation, the Tony Blair Institute, all these fuckers, they're all still, you know, they're still interfering at the local level, particularly in very urbanized conurbations. So London, you know, the big cities, London, Birmingham, Manchester, even down to sort of places like Luton and that. Well, you all know how well Luton's working out, don't we? So for me, I would say if you can get in at the council level, the reason why that would be a positive thing is because those candidates could lend support to, you know, lend support to strategies, if you like, or you know, doing the kind of stuff that Woodland is doing now. Because what will happen is, and like I say, Wednesday the 14th, You know, that's the day that when Woodlander drops the site and people can sign up, which I would absolutely recommend. What will happen is, if it starts to gather some kind of momentum whatsoever, the immediate reaction from the system, and it is the system. You know, it's not the Tories, it's not Labour, it's the system. The system doesn't give a shit if Labour are in, or if the Tories are in, or anybody else is in, as long as they are controlled by the system. So as soon as an innovation that the Woodland is trying to do, you know, the immediate thing will be to shut it down. You know, so from the national level, shut it down. Well, that'll transcribe into the local level, where you will have various paid for councillors, you know, traitors in my respect, who will try and shut it down. So, you know, Woodlander's doing what he's doing, you know, all up above board, or, you know, got all the legal things and all that lot. But these fuckers are in charge of who makes the laws. So they could pass a law tomorrow with the complicit judiciary, who don't give a fuck about anybody apart from keeping the status quo of the system, which would say, oh yeah, we're going to ban all of the wholesale sale of land, etc., if it's to be used for something good for the people. You know, they'll tart it up with some bullshittery, you know, saying, you know, either terrorism or some other fucking shite bollocks arse thing that's just meaningless these days. But their initial instinct, if anything gains traction, which, like I say, I hope the Woodlanders innovation gains as much traction as possible. But it's not just going to be in one place. It's hopefully going to be nationwide. And we therefore need local councillors who are going to be friendly to those kind of things happening. In other words, to be able to say to all of the paid for treacherous shills who are currently in the local councils, to basically put, like Woodland was saying, put a spanner in the works on them, so that they can't outlaw it. You know, it can't come down from the national level through to the councils to say shut it down, shut it down. If you've got 2 or 3 councillors, they can make an absolute stink of it. And more importantly, you know, even if they're not our guys, it becomes a useful tool for being, you know, able to legitimately, you know, speak out in the press. You know, a lot of the people in the press won't give anybody who dissents against the regime, Labour, Tory, doesn't matter, in print or on the radio or whatever. But there are certain outlets, you know, like you know, you could potentially, you know, you could, well, the Woodlander himself there, he's muckers with the likes of Vobesy, Richard Vobes. Well, Vobesy is a one-stop shop to Neil Oliver. And Neil Oliver's not on board with any of this bullshit that's going on.
No.
You know, I think that Neil Oliver is a decent, reasonable man. So I would say that if you've got the 6 degrees of separation, there's only really a couple of steps from me to Neil Oliver. And I say that unironically, because me to Woodlander, Woodlander to Vobes, Vobes to Neil Oliver. And you could basically say, you know, we're all on board and trying to support the innovation and the, you know, the movement, if you like, that the Woodland is trying to do. And I've coined a phrase, you know, we did it on Saturday with Toffee, and I'm saying we're going back to the old world order, yeah, where we control land, that we can do with it as we see fit without destroying it or whatever, but it will be used as a force of good rather than to be a commodity leveraged over the ordinary people. But you can't just do it in one great big kibbutz like, you know, Waco, Texas, or, you know, other places in America where that kind of shit's happened. It needs to be happening throughout the length and breadth of the UK. And obviously, when we want to stay away from the urbanized areas, because it's completely and utterly, you know, prohibitively expensive because of the, you know, abject numbers of people we've got in the country artificially. And B, no fucker wants to be there anyway. The whole reason why people would want to leave those places is because they have become third world shitholes. So if you can procure land which are outside of national parks, but are still beautiful, natural places where people would actually want to be and actually create a community and start for themselves, places like Northumberland, places in rural Scotland, places of that nature, places in rural Wales, places in the southwest, the beautiful rural southwest, not necessarily in the coastline because that's where all the money is, but there are absolutely fantastic places inland in the likes of Cornwall and Devon, which, the land prices, because it's not on the coastline, it's not prohibitively expensive, or at least not yet anyway. But unfortunately, like I say, if these traitors at the national level see what's happening, say, oh, hold on a minute, we've got little pockets of fuck you, basically. That's what I call it, these little communities are basically fuck you to the system. And they see these things, and people, around the country are going to start looking and going to say, yeah, I want to live like that because I don't want to be beholden to these traitors in Westminster, etc., etc. At the end of the day, you're going to need local support that has the control over the likes of planning permission, over the likes of what you're allowed to do with particular pieces of land. So we do need people at the local level, one, to put a cat amongst the pigeons of the status quo with all of the Tory, Labour, etc., existing councillors who effectively, irrespective of administration, just rest on the laurels, charge us a little bit extra every year on the council tax and do fuck all for it. In fact, do destructive things like push stonewall agendas in schools and shit like that, which nobody fucking wants. Net zero agendas, which nobody fucking wants. Like you say, DJ, nobody voted for this shit. Nobody's voted for anything since John Bull Major got in power. The only thing we've ever had a vote on, which they thought because of their own pollsters was going to be a done deal, was Brexit. And they shit themselves, including Boris, including Farage, including fucking Dominic Cummings, when they got the result. They got the result that they were campaigning for. None of those cunts wanted the result that they campaigned for. They just wanted to have their plaudits of saying, well, we didn't get the result we wanted, but we at least brought it to you, to give them political kudos. There was no substance behind that. So like I say, I agree with you 100%. At the national level, there is no, politics is broken. Yeah, politics is broken. Yeah. But at the local level, you can have some sort of effect, even if it's a disruptive one, or at least one of support, to support the sort of the innovations in the movement that Woodlander would want to do. Sorry for pontificating there, mate. Just
no, you're all right. Far on. Don't disagree with a lot of that. In fairness, I think I'm on record a few times of making reference to councils, local elections. So I mean, there is benefits to be had from that, for independence and whatnot. If anything, as well, the one thing you didn't say that I was thinking you would have said there is, if nothing else, it's sort of like an ear in the inside to know what's like sort of being proposed and whatnot, because quite often you don't hear all that much of what really occurs in councils, etc. But yeah, I was just keeping an eye on the backstage, and Scott Sarver's not returned. I do have one last thing that I want to sort of briefly go over. To a certain extent, it would have been good to get his sort of input on it, but hey ho. And before anybody suggests, or even you suggest, that I will just wait till Sunday when you're streaming. No, you've no idea how much shit I've bombarded him with. So I'll just go through this a wee bit here. So first and foremost, I did make a video on this in the past, but if people didn't see it, a news article came out about this. So it's been sort of briefly touched upon at points in the stream tonight. Obviously the critical race theory stuff in Scotland. It's getting to a point where it's just worse and worse and worse. It's spreading. So the article in question in this instance is new drive in Scotland to support student teachers of colour. And of course, the individual that's mentioned right off the bat is Kajida Mohammed, a very familiar lopsided face.
Alf. It's Alf, isn't it? Do you remember Alf? That woman looks like Alf.
I don't know who that is, to be honest, but I'm assuming it's a derogatory comparison.
No, it was a kids TV show in the 80s called Alf.
Alf.
And she looks just like Alf the alien.
Oh, my
You know?
Oh, is that what it was in the Tube Down in the Saxon intro?
Yeah.
Ah, yeah. Okay, but right off, like, it's like the sort of shit that gets thrown at the start to justify, but it's always hidden in the small print, kind of like manifestos for politicians. But hopes the new framework will attract and welcome and retain student teachers of color, right? So this article goes on a bit, and there she is. There, she's very sexy, very. I mean, I'm sure she's got voluptuous curves. The teacher and academic behind a new publication on anti-racism in education hopes it will boost efforts to make the teaching profession in Scotland more diverse and representative of society. Okay, red flags. Then, of course, we've got the National Anti-Racism Framework for Initial Teacher Education in Scotland, was written by Dr. Kujida Mohammed, Associate Dean for Equality, Diversity and Inclusion at the University of the West of Scotland, after she was commissioned by the Scottish Council of Deans. Now, this woman also works for the General Teaching Council of Scotland as the convener. She also sits on Scottish government panels to implement anti-racist curriculum, which used to say on their website, as I've stressed many times before, a critical race theorist lens. They only re-edited that page after I started making videos on it, explicitly showing this. And now, normally I wouldn't blow my own trumpet, but in this instance, I fucking am, because it's a bit strange that within a week of me posting that on a video showing explicitly what was stated in the Scottish Government's own website, they completely re-edited that page and removed that section. But unlucky for them, the video's on a multitude of different platforms. However, my point is, though, that this woman is on a multitude of panels, works with a multitude of different educational organisations all across Scotland. But just to get to the point, so I'm going to go into this here and share this tab. So this is her latest PDF, right? And it's called the National Anti-Racism Framework for Initial Teaching Education. So I've typed in whiteness because this is really the section I want to focus on in here. So bear in mind, it's just ridiculous nonsense. So this framework, right? Let me zoom in a bit more, actually. This framework offers an opportunity to consider structural changes to teacher education with clear, critical guidance leading to tangible outcomes. These changes aim to disrupt the centrality of whiteness and doing. Right? Whiteness. Further up here, the framework is a resource for every ITE institution, regardless of geographical location. There is often an assumption that where student teachers are unlikely to meet ethnic diversity in their university and or school placements, there is no problem here, and therefore there is little need to critically, that's a second, reference to critical, reflect upon diversity, race, and racism. There is a plethora of research showing how majority white and BAME student teachers have little appreciation of how their racialized identities may influence their interactions, right? But second reference to whiteness is here, where it says that I thought there was a section here. All right. Developing racial literacy, right? What does anti-racism look like? And they say that France Widdis Twine defines this, and she's a critical race theorist. I've shown this in a video before. Acknowledging racism as both a contemporary and historical problem, understanding that racial identity is a social construct, considering the ways in which race and racism intersect with other factors such as class, gender, and sexuality, understanding the impact of whiteness, developing language to discuss race, racism, and anti-racism, acquiring knowledge and understanding of how racial microaggressions, unironically, operate into the everyday school setting. Teacher educators need to engage with these issues of inclusion, representation, and decolonization. Anti-racist pedagogy is not about simply including racial content into programs and curriculum. It is also about how one teaches and continues the process of applying an anti-racist consciousness into programs, pedagogy, and interactions with colleagues and students. And then it says, this is just some examples of action areas. Explore the origins and usefulness of terminology and categories such as racialization, macroaggressions, microaggressions, colorblindness, fragility, privilege, whiteness, ethnocentric, assimilation, anti-Semitism, and Islamophobia. Right? Embed anti-racism across the curriculum. For example, in English and literacy, draw on text to facilitate discussions about racism, while in science, create opportunities to discuss why Black scientists are generally less well known, if at all. Ensure resources such as images, videos, music, art do not reinforce stereotypes. For example, avoid examples that could be off-putting for underrepresented groups in the program. Acknowledge and teach explicitly about racism and anti-racism, both past and present, within our school or within our institutions. Include historical perspectives with references to colonialism, imperialism, slavery, and modern slavery. You know, use inclusive language, of course. Diversify the program content. You know, it goes on and on and on and on. But my point is, in their attempts to brown our teaching workforce in Scotland, because the insinuation is that Scottish teachers as a whole, as a collective, as a demographic, are too whites. That's racist. We need to do things to implement, we need things to put more brown people into these positions. They sneak in all this other shit, such as prepare all student teachers to deal with racist incidents in school and to support all children to speak up against racism. So bear in mind, student teachers, right? So they want to implement this sort of anti-racist worldview for student teachers to waltz on into as soon as they leave their so-called training and whatnot, and in turn promote critical race theory or anti-racism or building racial literature, whatever you will. But this odious, grotesque material is just one of a myriad of examples that I've showcased over the years, especially the last year or so, where it's blatantly not about opposing racism. Why are things like fragility and whiteness included within PDFs consistently? Why are the things like the lack of diversity and racism and structural racism and all the different definitions of racism? Why are all these things included within this? These are, you could argue, whack job talking points or whack job beliefs, but these are all critical race theorist talking points and beliefs and concepts, and they are now becoming more and more integrated into Scottish academia. I just, for the life of me, don't know what the fuck else it's going to take for people to realize what's going on here. It's the most underspoken about thing occurring in Scotland since time began, quite frankly. LGBTI and whatnot gets a good shafting, maybe the wrong term to use in that respect, but plenty of people attack that. Plenty of people attack the climate change stuff. Plenty of people attack immigration and demography. Plenty of people attack independence or unionism, irrespective of which side of the aisle you sit on. Nobody fucking talks about this. Why? This is probably the most vulgar and grotesque aspect of academia taking place as we speak, and yet nobody bats an eyelid. And I don't know, I think it speaks volumes about a lot of people. That's my 2 cents in the matter. But Sensum, I don't know what you've got to say on that front.
Well, it's a combination of being a flex and a straw clutch at the same time. There you go. That's your favourite bird. Yeah. It's her, isn't it? That's the spitting image.
It's actually.
It is a bit. I'll tell you what, you've got to pick up a picture now that sort of gives it the separated at birth.
Well, leave it with me. I'll get it on paint.
Yeah. But I'm just I'll get rid of that one, mate. But it is to me, right? It's a flex, and in other words, like, wanting to empower the other over the indigenous. But it's also a straw clutch, because the more they keep on doing this, the more backlash is coming. Because, if you'd have said to Joe Normie a couple of years back, or the vast majority of Joe Normie, what critical race theory was, and white privilege. These I have no idea what you're on about. Yeah. Whereas now there are the rumblings of people sort of saying, "Yeah, I'm not on board with that." So it is. like I say, they're once again flexing their, you know, these, once again, I say this unironically, we should have a campaign that says paper Britons don't get a say in any fucking thing at all in our country. None whatsoever. And when I say our country, I mean the United Kingdom as a whole, yeah? You know, so that immediately excludes that woman, Humza Yousaf, all these other ones, you know, Lamy and Priti Patel and all them lot, yeah? Because, you know, name me any one of the paper Britons, and let's just go back that 30 years I'm talking about with regards to John Bull Major sort of usurping Maggie Thatcher, yeah? You name me any paper Briton in this country, right, that's actually done anything for the benefit of our people, yeah? And I think you'll find it's a nice round figure, 0. Now find me any paper Briton who've achieved a level of power, whether that be in the civil service, local politics, national politics, you know, where they've literally done everything they could to promote their own in-group. All the fucking time is the answer to that one. So 0 for us as people. And like I say, our decency and kindness and our sense of fair play and morality has been weaponized against us. You know, because back in the day, you know, the Windrush generation happened in 48 at exactly the same time as the likes of the NHS. And then, you know, even when the vast majority, and I'm talking about 90 odd percent, the only reason why it's less than 90 odd percent now is because we are now literally less than 90 odd percent of our own country. But it was 90 odd percent who were dead against any and all kinds of immigration. Yeah. Going way, way back, you know, even before the First World War, before the Second World War, post the Second World War to now, the vast majority who, if politics worked, would have had the say and would have stopped that immediately, and we would have literally been like Japan. You know, if the will of the people, you know, if politics and democracy actually worked, then we would have still been 90 odd percent, you know, British, like Japan was. Do you know what I mean? But it isn't, because we've had successive treacherous governments who've gone through the long march. And the problem is, you know, it started with Attlee, who was a communist traitor. And the problem was the Labour Party would lay the foundation and the groundwork. And then by the time the Tory party got elected once again, they couldn't go back on it. Well, they could, but they hadn't got the stones to do it, you know, because they thought, oh, it's not going to look right. They should have said, fuck looking right, because if successive Tory governments had basically turned around to all of the bullshittery that had preceded it from the previous Labour administration and had said, yeah, we're just going to overturn all of that shit and we're going to go further by doing X, the Tories would have been the forever party. You know, they literally would have been the forever party. The problem was the Tories, it's no different with Trump in America, you know, chasing after the fucking minority vote, which is what, 2% of his overall rating? Thanks. You know, if he'd had ignored all that bullshit and said, yeah, you know, Midwestern bloody Rust Belt communities, white people, I'm going to concentrate on you. There's been too much of this affirmative action and over promotion and trying to level up people who are just ill suited to the fucking task. So I'm going to concentrate on you guys. Trump would have, you know, irrespective of any kind of discrepancies because of voting machines, shall we say, he would have walked it. It would have been a cakewalk. But what did he do? You know, having not learned his lesson from 2016, where he literally was campaigning on, let's over promote the minorities sort of thing, and let's get jobs to this one, let's get jobs to that one. He did exactly the same in 2020, and people, you know, just said, you know, fuck it, I'm not going to bother. Like what you're saying, and that was the thing I was saying when you were saying about voting. I would say, learn how to properly spoil a ballot paper. because this gives momentum to a campaign called the None of the Above campaign. And none of the mainstream parties want that, because they know, especially in the political climate of today, is that none of the above would be the winner. You know, quite clearly would be the winner across every single fucking campaign, whether local or national. And they just don't want that. They just don't want to admit that ordinary people really do detest every and all form of politics, and more importantly, politicians. So if you can learn how to correctly spoil your ballot, and I did a video on it, and I can re-release that video again, showing exactly how you do it. You basically go to where the boxes on the right-hand side, where you would put your tick, or your cross, I should say, draw a straight diagonal line from the corner of the top box, you know, the top right corner of the top box to the bottom left corner of the bottom box of the vote. And then across all of the names, just write the words none, N-O-N-E, none. Don't put exclamation marks, don't put anything like that. Literally just put a big straight line all the way through the voting boxes and write across the names, the full length of the names in big letters, none. That then has to be recorded as a protest vote. And I keep on saying this to people. When it was the by-election with David Amos, and I can't remember, I think it was it Southend-on-Sea? I can't remember, where David Amos, the man who'd been killed by a fucking immigrant who shouldn't have even been here, in a fucking church, to add insult to injury, when it was his by-election, and he was a Tory candidate, Labour, you know, Labour was saying like, we're not going, you know, it would be bad taste to, you know, hold a campaign against something that happened tragically there. Well, our good friend Steve Laws, you know, bless him, he put his name in the hat for UKIP, and I think he came second or third. I can't remember exactly. Obviously, the Tories romped it because it was a Tory seat, and Sir David Amos, who was murdered, yeah, you know, I think they held a strongly lit, a strongly lit, held candlelit vigil for like a day, and then it was forgotten about, wasn't it? Oh, it was just a bit of hijinks, you know. They're not all bad, you know. Yeah, fuck that. So he did that. So he came. Oh, sorry, I think he came third, but second in that vote there was actually the protest vote, the spoiled ballot vote. It got more votes than the other candidates, you know, the sub-candidates combined. And that to me tells me that there is an appetite for people out there who literally want to put two fingers up to the system. And the best way you can do that is you don't have to vote for any particular person, but at least go out and properly spoil your ballot. So at least the number is recorded, because if in any election, whether it's local or national, achieves a, you know, the protest, you know, the none of the above, the protest vote, in other words, spoiled ballots, if that achieves higher than 1%, they have to read it out officially. And for me, it would be an absolutely great day if there was one of these up and coming by-elections coming along now, you know, because obviously the rats are leaving the sinking ship. If people turned out to vote, and you know, it doesn't matter if this dead in the wood Tory, they hate the Tory party now because the Tory party is not the Tory party, or dead in the water Labour, because Labour, you know, not what you have to realise is the vast majority of people in this country are working class people, and there is not one fucking party out there that represents ordinary British working class people. They represent every single fucking outgroup other than that. Yeah. So if all those people who would ordinarily vote for Labour, you know, ordinary, decent, hard-working people, not these batshit crazy fucking communists, just ordinary, decent people that say, you know what, fuck this. If they were to spoil their ballot properly, and the Tories did the same, because the Tory supporters, they can't lay any allegiance to the current shambles that is, wouldn't it be wonderful if, when it came to that by-election, or one of them, you know, the person reading out the results was to say, and with, you know, 15,000 votes, spoiled ballot, you know, with 8,000 whatever votes, and now the current MP forever, you know, Johnny Two Bollocks from the Conservative Party, or, bloody money wasting woman from the Labour Party with 3,000 votes. Wouldn't that be a great thing? Because then it would tell these they don't give a shit, but it would send fair warning across the bows that saying, we're not going to take this shit any longer. And the more you keep fucking pushing, the more in danger you fuckers are. Yeah. And like I say, at a national level, those twats don't give a shit because the regime doesn't care who's in power. But at the local level, you can make a real fucking difference and really, stick a fucking, cup of sugar into their fucking petrol tank. Bastards.
Hey, man. I will say on that point as well, though, like local, it's up to, especially, I don't know how it is in England. It's probably the same principle, but in Scotland anyway, it's sort of up to local, constituencies, aka councils, how hard they push certain agendas. But to add as a caveat, as a pushback to that, they all push them. Just really depends on how hard they push them. Some go full steam ahead, such as Glasgow Council. Some are a lot less heavy on the accelerator, such as the Highland Council, but they're all pushing these things to a certain extent. But spoiling your vote, yeah, this is sort of the same principle as what I said a while ago about stop voting. Same thing. Don't vote for a dickhead. Won't spoil your ballot paper if you wish. But to my point there, briefly, because I am going to have to conclude this soon, having work in the morning and whatnot. But I said earlier on about them saying on their website. It's funny, actually, while you were speaking there, albeit I was listening, I was just multitasking. In this gender equal world, we can multitask. I'll have people know, by the way. They've updated their website again, actually. Still no mention of critical race theory anymore, but it was updated in May 2023. But this was how their website used to be worded in their curriculum reform page on the Scottish Government's website. And I made a video on this, and within a fucking week, gone. So the subgroup has a vision that Scotland's schools and early learning environments will promote and embed racial equity, anti-racism, and global citizenship through its systems, leadership, using a critical race theory framework, right? So it goes on a bit there. I don't need to really read out the rest. It's just to highlight the critical race theory framework aspect of it. Now, that got scrubbed from the website. I made a video on this in the time. It's on Odyssey. It was on YouTube, where I said, correct me if I'm wrong, is this gone? Blah, blah, blah. But Clive messaged me that night. He was like, oh, I found something on the Scottish Government's website about critical race theory. So I deleted the video like a dick. And then I went and actually looked at what Clive sent me. Had fuck all to do with this. But so I've just not re-uploaded it. But I just want to show you how their curriculum reform page now is. So share this tab. Here's it here in 2023. Okay. Scottish Government website. Yeah. The curriculum reform subgroup is one of 4 work streams with the anti-racism in education program. Is leading an approach to articulating and embedding anti-racism across the curriculum at local and national level, engaging with the ongoing program of wider education reform to support a focus on inclusion, diversity, and racial and cultural literacy into the future priorities of the education system, right? The approach covers all aspects of the life of the school and the experience of learners, children, in addition to considering the content and approach to curriculum areas and how to embed anti-racism, critical race theory, also looking at priorities for education, such as children and young people's rights, and how their views should shape the curriculum. So children's rights, their right to be taken seriously and listened to while they're being propagandized, but then of course they then start demanding action and how to shape the curriculum. So it's almost like problem, reaction, solution. But their actions is as follows: review and reform of the curriculum framework for early years. This is nursery children, fucking nursery children. I don't know if you call it preschool in England. Is that how you call it? Or is that America? Early years in Scotland is nursery age children. So we're talking about children who have to get their nappy changed. They're like 2-year-old, 3-year-old, 4-year-old at a push. And they want early years onwards to articulate and embed anti-racist practice and learning for nursery kids. Developing curation of high quality resources that support and grow anti-racist learning and teaching across the curriculum. establish and fund an anti-racist curriculum senior officer, right? Work alongside HM Inspectorate and Care Commission RE nursery year settings to embed and grow anti-racist education expertise and leadership into the inspectorate approach that will help embed and drive awareness and improvement across the system. Design and administer a small grants fund for young people-led activity to create and support anti-racist change projects within the schools. In recognition of the impact of national qualifications in shaping education priorities, the Scottish Qualifications Association works with partners, including the Curriculum Reform Subgroup, to ensure appropriate inclusion of race equality and anti-racist practice and content in the development of new or adapted course specifications, right? And then just to conclude on this, if you come down to their members, she should be somewhere in here. There's one critical race theorist who I've covered on many occasions, but there's one in particular that, unless she's no longer on the panel, I fucking doubt it. There's another one there. Melina, I've spoken about her on many occasions. Where's Kajita, though? I don't see Kajita on this particular panel in this instance. She used to be there, but there is, as I say, there's now 5 subgroups. There just used to be 4. But this is Kajita is on many of them. Kajita is the one who we just spoke about with the attack on quote whiteness, etc. But my point is here, this is Scottish government endorsed, Scottish government fucking funded. You know, I don't really know how to tell people this fucking point. Pardon my French. It's absolutely remarkable to me how this is just going. It's been snuck in under the radar, under the guise, under the pretense of quote unquote anti-racism. And Scotland is just like the guinea pig, if I'm honest. I mean, this will not be limited to Scotland. Guaranteed this will not be limited to Scotland. But just to conclude on this, right, let me share this tab again. This is what it used to say, a critical race theorist framework, you know, race equality and anti-racism in education. I don't know what to say. But yeah, I don't know.
Well, I would say to them, you know, why include the middle word race? Why, if these so-called educators, you know, wanted to have the best for outcome for children, then why advocate that's such a narrow band, you know, critical race theory? Why not just advocate critical thinking? Oh, well, they can't do that because if they advocated critical thinking to children, even 5-year-olds within about 2 weeks lessons would work out, all this fucking rainbow stuff's bullshit, innit? All this fucking, so-called racisms going on that's just bullshit. That's not been a thing since, the mid-80s at the very latest, and probably not since the fucking 70s expired, you know? But the problem is, like I say, they can't. I've said this many times, DJ. I know you probably weren't around then, but I would say pre-Blair era in the UK was probably as close as you'll get to being colourblind, shall we say? Yeah, and obviously I'm talking about people like myself who were part of the fucking sheeple, part of the ordinary masses. It wasn't a thing. It was Fresh Prince years. So this is the problem I've got is all these nouveau so-called righty shitbags like a Richard Teese and a Loza Fox and all them lot. They want to go back to Fresh Prince years. No, it's too late then. It's too late. We need to go back to 1947 and say, no, we're not having them fucking ships coming here. That's literally what we should have been doing. Back to, way back, and like I say, a kid just, educate the children, but they can't do that anymore. It's just indoctrination. And I saw like one of these, what they call these shorts on YouTube, and it's this bloke. I can't think of. He's got a massive channel. He's like a game reviewer type thing. He's got loads of bloody game and Star Wars fucking memorabilia behind him. I can't think offhand, but he's a famous name. You'd know the name if you read it out. And he's now dropping these little TikToky videos that these fucking multicolored haired, nose ringed, short back and nasty types are posting on TikTok. And one of them was there saying, my students in my school know that I'm gender non-binary and that my pronouns are was, were, or whatever it was. And I had one boy come up to me, and when she's talking, they're not talking about 15, 16-year-olds. They're talking about kids, 7, 8-year-old at the max, yeah? Because this is where all this, if you notice, the more woke they are and the more fucking adjunct to society they are, the younger the kids are that they're teaching. That's how they're getting all this bullshit in there in the first place. And also the racism stuff and the critical race theory and all this bullshit, yeah? So she's there saying, and this lad goes, well, you're a girl, one of the, this boy, says, well, girls, well, so if you're a girl, if you're a boy, then I can be a girl. And she goes, okay, then. So do you want me to call you a girl and call you her? And he goes, no, because I'm a boy. And she goes, oh, so you're just saying that to hurt my feelings? And if the kid had had any gobblings about him, he should have said, yeah, fucking too right, you daft bastard. But obviously, they're too young to say that. And then, this fucking demon, because that's what they are. They're fucking demons. They're all, well, put it this way. There's a reason why they're the way they are, because they've probably all got daddy issues, and all of them are just unfucking marryable. There's just no redeeming factor about them whatsoever. Yeah. And she goes, but how would you even broach the subject with the parents to let the parents know the sort of the infringement on my sensibilities when they are probably the ones who have those opinions in the first place? I goes, well, please do, love, and then you'll fucking find out what the parents think. You know what I mean? Absolute sly cake. And the other stuff as well is, combined with all this stuff, it's the wokey side, but like I say, the race thing, it doesn't even stop there. It has to include everything else, doesn't it? All of these things, yeah, if you notice, and me and Toffee said on Saturday or whenever it was, they can't just talk about climate change. They can't just talk about, so-called perceived racisms. They can't talk about, the LGBT XYZ community. It all has to be rolled into one big nasty fucking steaming pile of shit ball. Yeah. So, you can't just have, this bit on race here. Oh, and it also includes this. You can't just have climate change bad, but this is also bad, which is associated with this. It all has to be lumped in together because, like I say, if they were to turn around to ordinary kids and teach them critical thinking, which is, that's the school years I grew up with. My favorite question of all time at school was why, but why? Because I wanted to understand why. Now, if I was to ask why, you would say you're a racist or you're anti-transphobic or whatever it is, or you're anti-climate. I'm just asking why. No, you're not allowed to ask why. You just need to trust the scientists. Trust the science that men can have a penis and women can have an erection. Well, women can have a penis and, or is it men have to sit down to have a piss or whatever it is? It's just everything's our side forwards, and we have to keep on pushing back. But the problem is going back full circle. There is no party in this country, or no mainstream party in this country that want to turn any of that shit back. Yes, you've got a Loza Fox. Yes, you've got a Richard Tice, but they're not our guys. The last thing I heard, I don't know if you heard that rumour, they were talking about Boris Johnson and Farage get together, rematch sort of thing. I'm like, no, I couldn't think of anything worse, because that literally gives the Tory party a little last gasping breath to get out. So,
Yeah.
it's just, kids.
I just on your point about critical
Yeah.
thinking and whatnot. I just it
Yeah.
reminded me of something that came out. I think this was like 2020 or 2021, but this is Education in Scotland. Same people promoting bullying racial literacy. Look at that fucking title.
Yeah.
How extremists are using CUF to promote disinformation, misinformation, and conspiracy theories. Sorry, right? This is for briefing notes aimed at senior leaders, teachers, and safeguarding leads, right? Providing a short summarization of the ways in which extremists have responded to the CUF, highlighting additional radicalization risk for children and young people, right? There is no there is no critical thinking in schools anymore. Funnily enough, though, they pride themselves on pretending that they actually promote critical thinking now, whereas they never actually had to do that. It was self-explanatory. Now they actually say they're promoting critical thinking, but yet this is a sort of dribble that, like as was mentioned earlier, top down. It comes from the top down. Education Scotland via the Scottish Government right into the laps of schools all across the country, and teachers then in turn take the shit into the classrooms and promote and peddle what's being provided to them. And one of the many examples which flies in the face of anybody suggesting that they promote critical thinking is bullshit like this. Like this is what was taking place in schools. One of many examples, but like the nonsense that they espouse, raising concerns about the welfare of vulnerable children. Important at seconds consider the radicalization concerns, particularly as children may have been exposed to disinformation, misinformation, and conspiracy theories. Sorry again. They try to effectively in this PDF suggest that people were extremists if they called into question the CUF. And like this is some of the Commission for Countering Extremism highlighted numerous examples of prominent extremist narratives relating to the pandemic, anti-Semitic conspiracy theories, right? Claims that British Muslims have flouted social distancing rules, promoting anti-Chinese hatred, Daesh-inspired narratives claiming the pandemic is divine punishment for the West's sins, extreme right-wing conspiracies claiming that society is collapsing and that right-wing terrorism can accelerate its ends through inciting social conflict, wider conspiracy theories relating to 5G or test and protect and anti-vax, which can be detrimental to public health messaging. So my point, obviously, for like sharing that, I wasn't attempting to derail you. I'm just saying, like they talk about critical thinking, but yeah, that's what they're learning in schools,
Well, but the thing is, mate, when we were on Saturday with Toffee there was a story that came out where, and this was a Telegraph story, where there was an actual ministry-funded mis- and disinformation group assembled specifically to liaise with mainstream and social media groups. So basically, all of the big networks, all of the big platforms like Facebook, Twitter, and all that lot, to basically sort of say, we've just come up on this, you need to shut that down. We've just come across this, you need to shut that down. Oh, we've just come across this, you need to shut that down. To the point where they'd actually produced an and I showed this on the stream, an anti-mis and disinformation toolkit that they distributed. Did you not see that one, mate?
No.
Well, it's. I tell you what, I won't bore the people in the chat now, but if you look back on my bloody thing, because I'll leave that up there till either get yeeted or I sort it goes off after a week. But yeah, we covered a story where, all the way through the as Shitrod would say, the pandemic, all the way through, people were saying, this just seems a little, the messaging seems a bit off. In other words, the social media messaging, the shut it down, the mainstream narrative messaging. And don't forget, GB News didn't come along until the sort of the final dregs of the pandemic. And lo and behold, it actually comes out now. Yes, there was a government-funded group whose sole task was to be in constant contact at some point every hour with the mainstream, the heads of mainstream media, the heads of the big social media platforms, advising them of what things not to mention, what things to take down, on the guise of this is misinformation, disinformation, which subsequently was proven to be 100% true. Yeah. And they even produced a toolkit, and the toolkit was called Resist, and it had some massive long bollocks. Resist is an acronym, so RESIT is the acronym, but each word like R meant something and something else. And I read it out and I just said, if you read all that bullshit paragraph there explaining what resist means, it just means shut it down. It literally meant if we whatever we say, just shut it down. That's literally what it meant, on the guise of mis and disinformation. And the thing is, in that particular document, there was no mention whatsoever of how you would validate if something was mis or disinformation. It literally was, we'll get in touch with you, shut it down. And that's literally what happened. And if you remember, Bojo the Clown, heading into his election, and after his victory, his resounding victory as well, which he did fuck all with, useless. But anyway, his resounding victory in 2019, like I say, we then wander into this, the pandemic, and it literally was, everything was shut down. But going into that 2019 election, Boris Johnson was making all of the right noises to say, yeah, we're going to fuck off that, the television license fee for the BBC because they're just a set of cunts. Well, unfortunately, when the pandemic hit and Bojo the Clown was convinced by the idiot Neil Ferguson, who's never been right once, twat. So both him and various other people, should be literally held to never work again. At the very least, should never work again, especially not in any form of government role or educational establishment, because, to never be right once on any prediction whatsoever, but to be at times 2 million% out. Yeah, fuck you. You know what I mean? You're a fucking useless cunt, basically. But this comes out, and lo and behold, BBC becomes the regime's lapdog in promoting all of the bullshittery, and they get a pass on questions about the fucking license fee. See how that works? Fucking cunts. The whole lot of them are. I just hate them all. I hate them all. I hate the regime. I hate every single fucking politician. And I hate everything to do with media and everything else. They're just fucking, the whole lot are traitor. They all need to be thrown in a fucking pit. That's what I say,
That's why you should all adopt the mantra of my name.
Yes.
Resisting the lies.
100%, mate. 100. You came here to listen to that, and that's 100% true.
Telling you. But no, I don't disagree. But on that note, folks, I have work in the morning, so this stream went on a lot longer than I actually expected. But I was pleasantly surprised by 2 additional guests, as it was just me and Toffee initially going to shoot the shit but Scott Sammer never returned, sadly. But nonetheless, thank you very much to Toffee for joining me. Thank you very much for Scott Sammer for reading his Ouija head. And a very big thank you to you as well, Sensum, for your inputs. And obviously, you're welcome on my channel anytime whenever I do decide to stream and whatnot. But before I sort of conclude the things, if you've got anything you want to plug or whatever, then feel free to do so.
I've got nothing planned this week. What usually happens is I find out at some point through the week if Bonnie Lad's going to be streaming on Saturday night or not. And obviously, big Sunday, this coming up the 18th, guys. Don't forget 2 massive dates this week. 14th of June, the Woodlander, keep an eye out on that one 100%. And then the 18th of June, the return of the trilogy on Sunday. What time are you streaming on Sunday? Do you know?
8:30.
8:30, yeah, the usual time. So 8:30 on Sunday. I've got an out planned, but if Bonnie Lad lets me know that he's not streaming on Saturday, I'll probably do just another general news stream, 8 o'clock on Saturday, mate. That'll be me. And cheers, folks, in the chat for listening to my rants and rages. But if I don't do it, nobody else will.
Right. Well, big thanks to the folks that have stuck around from the start, but big thanks as well to the people that have popped up sporadically. But just to say goodbye to a few that are still here. St. Thomas, forgive my ignorance, for I have sinned. Aquinas. But
Thomas Aquinas. It's
I
Saint
knew
Thomas
that. I
Aquinas.
was just testing you. Fucking didn't test me like.
It's Saint Thomas of Aquarius.
Oh, right, aye. Fucking aye. The Woodlander, you've been around from the start. Thank you very much for tuning in. Robert Ingram, thank you very much. Exiled Viking, pleasure as always. Diane Abbott is a lovely woman. I won't hear any different. All right, mate. Cherish Rosen. I don't know if I've seen you before, but nonetheless, very much appreciated for tuning in and whatnot. Right, on that note, and David Bruce as well. I'll say hello because I think I passed your comments by mistake. But nonetheless, I've got work in the morning and I've got to fuck off now. So I hope you've taken something away from the stream, whether it's anything I said or anything anybody said at any point, then aye, good. If not, then go and watch Coronation Street and consider what the fuck you're doing with your life. All right, adios. Until next time, peace.